Thank you for pressing start on episode 92 of Underplayed, KZUM's indie video game podcast. Today, we have 2 secret games, a discussion with our guest, Dave Jackson, and a review of our featured game, Hollow Knight: Silksong. Here on Underplayed, we review indie games of all kinds, the games with small budgets but big hearts, the lesser-known experiences with imaginative ideas. I'm Bo Poe, and I have a co-host. What's better than that? He's shaking his cake in Human Fall Flat, powering his radio with the turn of a crank, and playing through games till the backlog is blank. It's the 1,000 times resistin', Google form insistin', funky member of the Bomb Rush crew, DiscoCola. How do you do?
I gotta tell you, my hands hurt and my head feels a little funny. It feels like it's ringing like a giant bell, but I can get through it. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. My grandfather Silk, which is a character you don't see in Hollow Knight: Silksong, which is what we're referring to there with our intro.
I got to play that boss with my kids in the room. And it was a funny name to catch, first of all. Grandmother Silk, but then my youngest would be like, Grandma Silk?
Grandma Silk.
Grandma Silk?
Oh no, now you can't defeat her. The kids are getting attached.
Not quite.
Well, the kids have been in a bug phase for quite a while, and here's a game all about bugs.
Yeah, my youngest asked me today, Dad, play bug game? Play bug game?
And you're like, oh, Hollow Knight: Silksong?
Yeah, I'll
Bug Fables: The Everlasting Sapling?
I can play that for a little bit, bud, but I gotta do some work.
So Silksong is bug game?
Silksong is bug game.
That's awesome. Have they seen the original Hollow Knight?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I will pull that back out eventually.
Okay.
Because now that they are okay with watching me play it and not wanting to play it themselves necessarily.
Yeah.
That opens up the opportunity to get some of this completionist stuff done that I had nowhere near enough time for.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. There's a ton in there. And we'll talk about our journeys with the game pretty in depth with Dave Jackson later in the episode. Dave, as I understand it, has recorded his own episode about Hollow Knight: Silksong on his show, Tales from the Backloggd. I think his episode was like 3.5 hours long or something.
Whoa.
Or maybe the recording was that long. I have intentionally not listened to it because I want to get his thoughts fresh. But our guest is Dave Jackson, who I've met in person, and I've been a guest on his show, Tales from the Backloggd. And Tales from the Backloggd, as we sit down to record, just hit 200 episodes.
Nice.
I think Dark Souls 2 is the 200th featured game on that show. So
Excellent.
We'll talk to Dave in a bit about his content, his taste in games. Then we will have our entire featured game section with him too. We're going to talk about Hollow Knight: Silksong. I can't believe we're here.
Yeah.
All the times you and I talked about it, looking at Nintendo showcases and wondering, are they going to reveal Silksong? Are they going to re-reveal Silksong? Are they going to announce a date?
This time a year ago, I was a naysayer.
Right?
This time 4 months ago, I believe, I was like, I don't remember how long it's been out. But
it's been out since September, so maybe 6 months ago.
6 months ago, I was still a naysayer.
Yeah, because when they announced Silksong, it was only 6 weeks out or something.
Yeah. And it was
it's coming out.
It was 2 days after a recording where I said, it's not going to come out. And when it does, it'll be fine. And I'll be happy to be wrong.
It's one of those games where they could shadow drop it and they'd probably be just fine.
That's how I would have done it.
They should have done that. Yeah. But it's here. It's here. It's kind of surreal that we've now put dozens of hours into this game that we didn't think would come out, we weren't sure 6 months ago, and here we are. So it's a momentous game. It's a big, gargantuan indie game from 2025, one of those ones that millions of people have played. So there's always that pressure, I guess, to cover it all, cover it in depth, but
cover it quickly too.
Yeah, totally.
It was I remember when we were going to cover Stray, we covered that relatively quick based on how we have to schedule things.
Yeah.
But even by the time we got to it, it kind of felt like we missed the chapter.
You can only do so much.
Yeah.
And same with blueprints, but that's what I love about indie game reviews is they're sort of timeless.
They are.
And even if we don't get to every single aspect and corner of the game to talk about. There's just so much in there. What we say is unique to us, and I think that's pretty special. So it'll be even more special having Dave on to help us with that. So because we have a guest today, we're going to move on pretty quickly. But before we do, there are a few very easy ways to support Underplayed. They cost nothing, and they take almost no time at all. We would really appreciate you doing these things for us if you haven't already. So one, you can give us a follow and a 5-star rating on podcast platforms. You might be listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or elsewhere. Anywhere where you can leave a follow and drop 5 stars would make us appear more consistently for you and for others. Another thing you can do is follow us across social media. We have links in our show notes for that. And 3, sharing our podcast by reposting our stuff on social media and telling your indie game loving friends about us means the world. And as always, we love you. Thank you for listening. It's time for our secret games.
Secret games. Secret games. I know you're playing without me. Secret games. Well, I'm here to tell you, baby. Secret games. I've been playing too. Secret games.
In Secret Games, we each review an indie game we've been playing very quietly since our last episode. We do not discuss our picks in advance. We keep them a surprise for this very moment we're recording. We can choose any indie game as long as we haven't talked about it on our show before. We'll start with you, DiscoCola. Let the mystery be no more. Reveal your secret game for episode 92 of Underplayed.
Okay. When you figure out what it is, I want you to say it. My secret game is a Metroidvania from Heart Machine, and it is called
Hyperlight Drifter.
Possessors.
Possessors.
Yes.
Kaz, wait. No. Help me.
Amazing. I'm very much aware of this. I've played the demo for this, but gosh, it really wasn't that much playtime I got with it, and I haven't played the full game. So this is very exciting.
So in Possessors, the game opens with a massive demon outbreak, and we are Luca, a young woman whose legs have been totally destroyed as a result of the destruction wrought by vindictive and feral demons alike. We're inches away from death, and we witness a powerful, one-horned demon kill our best friend Kaz. While crawling in desperation, we encounter a demon named Rem, equally close to death. Rem possesses Luca, and they strike a deal. Luca will get to survive her injuries as long as she brings Rem back to the Rift so that he can go home to hell or the demon world or whatever.
Quite an unlikely pairing. The
Yeah.
kind of pairing where it's like, I don't have good feelings about this.
It's either this or nothing, baby.
It's either this or the alternative.
Yeah.
So one of those dynamics.
When we wake up, it's something like 2 years later. The world is in ruins. Feral demons are possessing inanimate objects everywhere, and our legs have been totally replaced by some like supernaturally strong prosthetics. If you've seen, and I'm going to throw it to one of my special interests, if you've seen Transformers 1, just think of Arachnid's crazy spider legs that she has. It's kind of cool.
Okay.
In gameplay, it's the standard sort of Metroidvania action platformer. You have access to a jump and access to like a plain melee attack. You will also find various upgrades and weapons that will change your mobility and how you interact with combat. I'd say chief among the upgrades include a sprint dash, not too unlike Hornets,
Nice.
and a grapple tool. The grappling tool will be used in so much of this game. You'll also find loads of different pickups that either increase health or increase healing efficiency or increase your use of your special weapons or add like passive buffs to your equipment. And just quickly to add here, One of those passive buffs is vampirism. So vampirism is back,
Okay,
baby.
baby.
Love it.
The secret theme of all of his secret games this season is
Is
vampirism.
vampirism.
He's just, oh man.
I actually, you know what?
He's getting sucked into vampirism.
Got a little bit of vampirism in Silksong too, and I did not go underutilized.
There you go.
So with all of this at your disposal, it is your mission to explore this desolate city and locate the 4 demons that hold the eyes of corporate executives, which will allow you to access the door leading to the research lab, which is where the entrance is to the rift.
And the corporate executives are the businessmen from Wanderstop, actually. Crossover.
What were they like? Tim, Jim, and
yeah, Jerry.
Oh yeah,
Gary, Barry, Larry.
Yeah,
Jerry.
we're finding their eyeballs.
Yes,
keeping them in our pocket.
Yes.
So I'll keep it, really baseline, keep it there. As for things I really liked about this game, I really love the art direction. It's, quite different from Solar Ash or Hyper Light Drifter, which I still generally prefer. But this game goes with a darker, decayed, sort of rusty color palette for the most part, but still has that motion afterglow aesthetic that I attribute to pretty much any Heart Machine game.
Oh, yeah.
Additionally, I really like the character designs. I think Luca is just mega cute, and I think Rem is a hottie. But apart from just the humanoid characters, the bosses and demon objects all look really cool. There's filing cabinets, demons, and they look really awesome. There's these bizarre computer monitor demons that have computer mice on their cloaks, but they look like sperm. It's just totally unforgettable designs, and I love it. I really love the music in this game. Joel Korolitz, who we know from Gorogoa, and Azuria Sky composed the music for this game. I believe this is Azuria's first video game credit. And it's awesome. It fits all the situations. It's subdued when called for, driving in moments of action. And all the while, it sort of has that disaster piece vibe sort of thing set back in Hyper Light Drifter. So you still get that sort of droning kind of vibe, if you know what I mean, if you've heard it.
It adds a cohesion to their gameography, even though they're not working with the same composer. You can tell that's the vibe they always want to chase.
And it kind of sounds like Solar Ash too, even though that was mostly someone apart from Disaster Piece or either of these two. So it's cool. They definitely have a style. But apart from the music, the sound effects are also really great. The grapple has this unique sound that is forever tied to that specific grapple. Demons that charge and shoot projectiles have a very unique sound design that's forever tied in my mind to these enemies. And when I picture gameplay in my head, the distinctive sound effects play alongside it. And I can't say that for too many games. So these are some of my favorite sound effects since Inscription. I think gameplay feels really good and kinetic, especially after we get the sprint dash, and the level design is set up in a way that allows you to get to places really quickly once you get things like the sprint and the grapple. And I really like the world design. I like seeing how everything is fallen apart, and we get to visit places like a shopping mall and a university and see what places like that look like after, a demon infiltration of our town. And there's plenty more I like about this game, but I'll leave it there at these high mentions. For things I don't like, we see our final objective really early. Think Hollow Knight, Pale Egg, or whatever that place is called, where we see it basically right at the beginning of the game. But so many of the places we need to go to first require something called the Executive's Keycard or whatever. And so we see all these doors throughout our journey, and it's blocking me from most of my marked objectives on the map, but I don't know where to get this key. So I spent a super long time just sort of aimless trying to get this damn key. And it was one of the few areas that I just sort of didn't get to. I didn't even know it was there until it was basically the only area left, and that's where the key was. So I would just say that I have an objective and I have access to maybe too much of the map, but that makes me a little bit aimless really early on.
That's fair, because you categorize this as a Metroidvania, right?
Yes.
And we're so used to seeing doors that are locked, and we realize, we'll get a key later, and we have to return, we have to backtrack. But there can be too much of the world opened up to the point where even if that's a hallmark of the genre, it just doesn't feel balanced. There has to be this good balance of like being a little overwhelmed, but also being guided.
Yeah.
So that you're not straying way off the path.
And, Ghostsong did that to a point as well, but I think even Ghostsong was a little bit more disciplined in like making sure that you're not going to get an ability that lets you get to so much more of this map without first having to get this one key first.
Yeah. Right.
So I wish I would have had a little bit more direction early on. I think some fights are a little too hard, and the upgrade system has limits. So at a certain point, if you're struggling with a boss, it's not like there's pale ore lying around. You add these passive buffs, but once you've maxed out on passive buffs, you might just be at a skill ceiling. So you'll have to just sort of hit your head against the wall until you win. Next, this game has a parry, and you can parry pretty much anything that will damage you, and it will often be devastating to your enemies, like really knock them back. But the timing for it seems kind of inconsistent, so it's really hard to master. And as for me, I haven't totally mastered it. I succeed about 78% of the time.
Okay.
Even now.
78%.
That's
just like what you feel.
Non-mathematical.
Yeah, it's just what you feel. Yeah.
And last but most chief among my complaints is that at many times I would find myself calling this game Stunlock the game. Your stun from getting hit is pretty significant, and you don't really get iframes or anything. So certain enemies that shoot several projectiles at once, like if they get you with that first projectile, all of the rest of the projectiles will hit. And in most cases, that's enough to take out your entire life bar.
Oh, shoot. So it doesn't matter at a certain point whether it's, 3 or 5 or
if you
bullets.
miss that parry and that first one hits you, depending on the enemy, you're just done.
Yeah. So it might as well just be one bullet that can kill you.
Yeah, exactly. It can suck. Like if you get hit mid-air and you fall fast enough, like you miss the rest of the bullets, but yeah, the stun lock happens pretty often, and it's really frustrating.
Okay.
But in the end, I think Heart Machine is back, baby. Like I mentioned to you, this might have even been in an Underplayed recording, that I hoped doing a 2D game would be the trick to really like get the juice back. And I think that was the trick. Possessors has a compelling relationship at its core with Rem and DeLuca, with really awesome sound design and art direction. I love the gameplay, and exploring all the nooks and crannies is often rewarding. Stunlocking does tend to be a massive pain point in what is otherwise just a really enjoyable experience. I really like this as a Metroidvania. I like this as a game. I want to play it again. I give Possessors a 9.5 out of 10.
Wow. That's awesome, dude. I didn't know, how many people played this. Doesn't look like a ton of people have picked it up, so I'm glad you gave it a spotlight here. I really hope this isn't Heart Machine's last game. Not to be a downer here, but I just...
Things have been rough.
Things have been rough. I know they've had to have layoffs on their team. And I know that Hyperlight Breaker wasn't the success they were hoping it would be. They put a lot of time into that game, and it's launched in early 2025, and it just was not... it didn't go as planned.
Yeah.
We'll just say that. But then Possessors was coming up. We didn't really know as much about this earlier last year. And then I noticed this was published by Devolver.
Yeah.
Solar Ash was published by Annapurna. Hyperlight Breaker was published by a different publisher. And then Hyperlight Drifter was self-published, which is, they've always kind of done something different with their publishing.
I think Hyperlight, depending on the version, has different publishers.
Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
certain
Like the
console
ports
versions have publishers on them.
Okay.
But yeah, worthy of the Devolver, tack in my name. And, I didn't dislike Solar Ash. I thought Solar Ash was fun. It does seem like an Annapurna game. But there was like something there that was just missing. And I believe you might have even went so far as to say missing soul or soulless. I don't know if you said it for that episode, but... And I think they really wanted to make a 3D game, and maybe they just shouldn't. And I still liked Solar Ash, but Possessors is quite a lot better, I think.
So one thing Possessors has that their other games doesn't is, I feel, like personality and a lot of talking.
Mm-hmm.
Like we do get some voiceover and some dialogue in Solar Ash, a lot more than Hyperlight Drifter. Like Hyperlight Drifter's like a wordless game mostly. So how is that evolution of going from like Solar Ash and its relatively smaller amount of talking to like this, where it feels like there's a lot more personality going on? Like, did they nail it, I guess?
Well, I would say that I read some of the reviews on Steam before I started, and I was going to play it regardless of what they said. But one of the more positive reviews didn't really jive with the characters and the story and how it was presented in this way. Mm-hmm. I don't really feel that way. I thought it was fine. I'd say maybe too frequently Rem and Luca have this sort of like combative aside, you know, at times that you don't really understand what the trigger for it was.
Okay.
But in general, I think they have a great relationship given their circumstances. And I found myself like caring about Luca, caring about Rem. I loved learning about their history. And, you know, because they're sharing a mind and body, like whether or not they're sharing those things on their own terms is a point of conflict too. And I think that's appropriately explored too.
Nice.
So I found it compelling personally. Apparently others did not, and I don't feel the same way.
Yeah, then that's fair. That's something that I didn't really get a full taste of or a proper taste of in the demo. So that's great to hear from you that you enjoyed that part. All right, where can you play Possessors?
Possessors can be played, it looks like, on PC and PS5.
Nice. I assume you played the PS5 version?
I played the PS5 version, and this is it's in my top 20 indie games now.
Holy crap. Wow. That's amazing. I love that. Good to see Heart Machine back. I hope they are able to continue making more stuff. It is time for My Secret Game. My Secret Game is not a Metroidvania.
I'm not surprised.
It is not as long as Possessors, I imagine. It is a 2025 game, and it is called Many Nights a Whisper.
Okay. I watched you play some of this.
Yes.
Yeah. This is one that, like, when I wasn't interested in it before I saw anyone play it. Then I saw you play it, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of interested in that choice situation, but the arrow, the archery part seems stressful. Pressure. Lots of pressure.
This is a game about pressure. That's a great quick pitch about it. So Many Nights a Whisper is a 2025 narrative adventure game. It was developed by Deconstruct Team and Selkie Harbor and published by Deconstruct Team, the same team that's brought us the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood. A lot of people have probably heard of that one. The game synopsis from the Steam storefront reads, quote, "A short interactive essay on dreams, pressure, and expectations. Take part in an ancient ritual where one shot determines the fate of a generation." End quote. So yes, I have streamed this game. I streamed it all in one session last year. It ended up being one of my favorite games of 2025. Slight spoiler for my feelings on it. But I actually replayed this yesterday. So I did different things.
Wow. Okay.
Yesterday. And the biggest reason why I'm picking this game for this episode is because originally, last year, Dave Jackson gifted this game to me. He saw it, he played it, he was like, you know what, it's only a couple bucks, and I think he gifted it to several people who he thought of. So thank you, Dave Jackson, for gifting me Many Nights a Whisper on Steam. So very fitting for this episode where we have him as a guest. So in Many Nights a Whisper, it opens with the story that I will just read. I'll quote this because it's so good and it just summarizes things so well. So you get this title card text at the beginning. Quote, 10 years ago, you were chosen to perform a ritual. You were filled with joy when, among so many teenagers, you emerged as the ideal candidate. Since then, you've been dedicating yourself to your training in body and mind. The ritual requires you to throw a fireball with a slingshot to light up a sacred chalice. If you land it, everyone's wishes will come true. If you fail, no one's wishes will ever happen. End quote.
Pressure.
Yeah. So that's really it right there. So you play as this person called the Dreamer, who is responsible for the wishes coming true for a span of a decade for this village in an archipelago. You're always in this same spot next to this like kind of hut, small structure where you have a mentor who has advised multiple dreamers, and they walk you through what you must do. And sometimes they're talking to you, sort of talking about the philosophy of your decision making, but everything is up to you to decide on. And coming up, you have this ceremony in which you must land a fireball in a chalice that seems like it's hundreds of feet away. And every night you sit beside a wall, and townsfolk walk up to the wall on the other side, and there's a hole that they put their braided hair through.
Just their hair.
Just their hair. That got me.
Sorry.
So, no, we're keeping that in. Oh, that's good. People walk up to the hole in the wall, they put their braided hair through it, and they give you their wish. And it can be something like wishing for rain, or for a certain flower to grow, or to have the most beautiful bald head, or to be a rock star. But there are bigger wishes that you eventually see, like someone wants someone to fall in love, and someone wants all religion to end. So the enormity, the implications of the wishes, they vary. And if you accept a particular wish, you have to cut their hair that they've put through the hole. And your mentor takes that hair and fashions it into extra string for your slingshot, which will allow you to shoot fireballs further. And by default, you don't have enough slingshot strength to make the shot for the ceremony. So if you want everyone's wishes to come true, you're going to have to accept some wishes at least. But you could accept every wish if you wanted to. You could reject every wish if you wanted to, or a mixture. So it's entirely up to you, the player, on whether you're going to listen to these people and grant their wishes or not. Then, also, between each night, during the day, you can practice shooting fireballs into chalices all around the archipelago. And your goal is to see these wishes, listen to the people, and hopefully succeed in landing the fireball in the big chalice. It's a third-person game, too. I don't think I mentioned that. But I will say what I liked about Many Nights of Whisper now. And what I love, I think, the most in this game is just the concept and how unique it is. You play as this person with this great amount of responsibility, someone who's highly respected, and you feel the respect come your way. When people approach the wall, you're like worshipped almost as this person with a special role. And the weight of the outcome really lands. Before we even get to the ceremony in this game, I feel that pressure. And all the dilemmas and moral questions this game makes me ask are pretty incredible too. Like, if I stick to my morals and find myself rejecting lots of wishes because I feel like they go against my morals, I won't have that strong of a slingshot. So then do I start making room for accepting more wishes? Do I cross a line here and there for the greater good? And I also really think the ways the wishes intersect are interesting. If I grant someone's wish for their dog to live forever, and then also someone's wish for animals to not have souls so that when they eat an animal, they won't feel bad because that animal doesn't have a soul. Does that mean that the dog that I granted immortality to, is that going to be a dog that becomes an unkillable monster? You know, have I created the next Cujo, basically, by granting these two totally disparate wishes? So you start thinking about how the wishes affect each other too. I also really love how the game looks. The archipelago setting is beautiful. There's this iconic architecture. I love the look of the chalices and how big they are. And when you shoot fireballs into them, a big flame just erupts from them. There's a lot of modern texture in the game for who you are, though. It kind of seems like a historic place that you're in, maybe an ancient kind of place. But you are this person with like this punk rock style. You have a really modern, like alternative haircut.
Mm-hmm.
And even like what you're wearing does not appear to match this place. So there are all these like interesting mismatches of like style and location. And the writing is diverse across all the visitors and their wishes. You don't see their faces, but their manner of speaking changes with each request to convey a lot of emotion and motivation. Sometimes people are very calmly giving you their wish. They're a very mature person. But then other times people are impatient. They're short with words. They yell. You'll see their wish in all caps because they're just, they really want something to happen. They're frustrated, maybe. What I disliked about this game is really just the curiosity that I have that isn't fulfilled in a lot of places. Like, I think this game teases a lot with its world that I want to know more of. Like, why is our character blonde, but everyone else is brunette? What happened to the past dreamers? Where is this archipelago? There's very little like table setting for things before you read that intro text that I read a second ago. And then I also have questions about the logistics of the wishes. In order to make a good decision, I want to make sure I know how a wish would actually behave if it came true. So for instance, someone asked me if they could start their life over again with the knowledge they have. And they want to skip the baby years. They want to start maybe like on the first day of school and have all the knowledge they have as an adult. But I immediately start wondering, does that mean they go back in time, and if they came up to this moment, then they have lived that life? Or does the whole world go back in time with them? Or do they start over like now? Do they turn into a 6-year-old now?
Does it wait until they die the next time and then?
Right.
Yeah.
So you wonder if something sounds good, is there actually like a monkey's paw situation with it? There are bigger examples than that I'm not sharing to like save some of what's special about this game. But I think there are sometimes those questions that just keep me from feeling fully confident and enthusiastic about my choices. So I think this game is a really fascinating short sit. It was special because I created a moral system by which I judged the wishes, and the more complicated the wishes became, the more I reckoned with those morals. I really highly recommend this to everyone. For me, this is a 9 out of 10, and it is playable on PC.
Cool. Well, I saw the end of this game and like maybe 1 or 2 hours before that, so I have a pretty decent idea of what's going on. I haven't seen failure yet, though, at the end. And so do you know what that looks like? You don't have to spoil it, but have you seen it? What does it look like, and is it significantly different?
So the big purpose of replaying it with different choices yesterday was I wanted to get that other ending. So I have seen both success and failure at the end, and they are very different, and they leave me with very different feelings at the end. Very powerful emotions are going on at the end, and then the credits scroll. So it is very noticeably different at the end, depending on whether you make that shot. And also, the game acknowledges, I won't say how, but in game, it acknowledges the idea of save data, and it confirms to you that as you enter the final ceremony, your save data gets erased. So you can't retry if you fail. You have to accept what happens. I think a big takeaway for me, or like a big moral of the game, is things happen in life and you have to just accept what happens a lot of the time. And accepting and just realizing this is part of life is part of life. So that's kind of a notion I was reminded of at the end.
All right. Well, that's all I wanted clarification on.
Yeah. So I highly recommend it. And we have 2 highly recommended secret games today, Possessors and Many Nights a Whisper. We will move on now to our discussion with Dave Jackson, this episode's special guest. We have someone who's played many a game. He's a master of third acts and puts your playtime to shame. He's a walking Rolodex who knows all the geeks, so many that he has a new guest every week. It's the Lost Dog Chaser, the Backlogd Embracer. We're glad to be relaxing with the great Dave Jackson. How's it going?
Amazing. You pulled out some Dave lore in that introduction that I was not prepared for. Thank you both for having me here.
He's the Sean Evans of rhymes.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, I'm the Nardwar of coming up with intros for people. Yes, that one actually took quite a while. So thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate the work on all the rhyming at the beginning of these. It's always great.
Thank you. Sometimes, I was telling a friend this, sometimes the rhymes just kind of spill out of my brain all at once. Sometimes they're the result of pieces I put together from like shower thoughts and like waking up in the morning, getting ready, thinking about it. And then other times I'm just sitting there stumped, like what rhymes with Dave Jackson?
Yeah.
But we got it.
It's tough.
We made it.
You got it done.
It's like your capstone project, but 5 times a quarter.
But constantly.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, it's an honor to have you. We're big fans of you and everything you do. And you have played many a game. And today we're talking about a big game, Hollow Knight Silksong. First, we're going to get to know you, though, for people who don't know all the Dave lore. And I'm sure we'll learn something, too, as like fellow podcasters and stuff we haven't heard before. But it's just always cool to kind of talk shop about making content and podcasting and things. So I guess first, tell us about yourself and describe the many things you love to do.
Yeah, so people would probably know me most for being the host of Tales from the Backloggd, which is, I'm in year 5 right now, almost coming up on the fifth birthday. Is that how we say that? Year 5, year 4? I don't know. But the show's been going since 2021. And it is a weekly show where I review one game with a guest every single time. And Bo was a guest on one of my episodes. We talked about a cool indie called Pseudo Regalia together. And that is the way that most people know me. I did host another podcast before that called a Top 3 podcast, which was a top 3 list show with some of my high school friends. And we did that for a few years as well. And as the rhyme at the beginning of the introduction may have tipped off, people are like, what was Bo talking about there at the beginning? I was a dog catcher in a former life. So there's a little hit of Dave lore, underplayed exclusive Dave lore. I don't even think I've talked about it on my own show.
How does he know?
It's
in my Discord bio.
I have my ways. So how long did you do the dog catching thing?
First he watches and then he
exactly.
That's true. Yeah.
It's a lot of watching and sometimes catching. Yeah. I did that for 4 years, and that was back over 10 years ago now.
So Tales from the Backloggd has now outlived your dog catching years.
Right. And if I ever want to do a podcast about dog catching, we'll call it Tales, Tails from the Backloggd.
There you go.
Or Tales from the Barklog. We've got a lot of possibilities.
Nailed it.
You're tickling my brain.
Just like devote a whole month to dog games. You can play Chicory. You can play.
Oh my gosh.
What's that game that you hated? Balthazar's Dream.
Yes. Dogpile, the new.
Dogpile. Yeah. There's a lot of cat games, but I think I could cobble together 4 dog games.
Yeah, that's why you only do it like 1 month.
Yeah.
And then you call it a day.
Dogs organized neatly. That's a fun one. But they also make cats organized neatly. But anyway, the Top 3 podcast, I haven't heard about that as much. So that was just with high school buddies. And would you call that like a precursor then? Like, would Tales from the Backloggd not exist without your experience there?
It's possible, because that was the first podcast I ever made. And we just started it because we figured out that podcasting was actually not hard to make a podcast and put it out. And we just started doing it to, send to some of our friends and hopefully make them laugh. And like my mom thought it was funny and stuff. And then it got to be like way more comfortable with like, what does it mean to like record, edit, produce, release a podcast, market a podcast and stuff like that. And after probably 6 months of doing that, I got the idea of like, well, I have this other thing that I would really like to do. And that's where Tales from the Backloggd came from. So it's very possible that I would like have just, without all the things involved with top 3, I would have just like never thought like, yeah, I can make my own podcast. But it started with zero pressure. It's just me and my 3 best friends from high school doing top 3 lists together. And then we put it out and we tell like the other guys in our group chat that we have a new episode. And that was literally just all it was at the beginning. So like the least pressure possible.
Yeah. Working in a field where we help people launch podcasts and do the training with them, it's like one of the first things we always tell them is like, consistency is going to be the hardest thing about this, and people always underestimate what it takes to be consistent. So really think about it. But once you get to that level where it's like, okay, I know I can be consistent about this, that's when it's successful.
Yeah.
I want to follow up, just nail down on some specifics on this top 3. Is it just like top 3 like pasta shapes, just like top 3 anything?
Yeah, basically, some topics that come to mind. Our most recent episode, which we actually did not long ago, like we still put them out sometimes. It's just not a regular show anymore. We did top 3 smells. That was our most recent episode. Back in the archives, we've got top 3 fair foods, top 3 Pokemon, top 3 Nintendo 64 games was one of our first episodes that we did, which if you want to hear like rough audio recorded with a, with like an Xbox headset, like that kind of audio, that was those days. But yeah, just, we kind of, I think for a while when we were doing it every week, we had a rotation of like, it's my turn this week. And I say, we're doing top 3 fair foods. And then the next week, someone would be like, we're doing top 3 fears, and then on and top 3 things you do with $1 billion, like on and on and on.
Wow. So you don't really know what's coming up if everybody's taking a turn picking.
Well, we knew we had time to prepare, but that's basically it. It was always unpredictable. Like, okay, what is this other person going to choose for our topic?
Right. I would bring to that chaotic energy like I bring to Bo's stream with the light redeems.
Oh yeah, I would expect you to. And you got to have at least one person in the lineup that does something like that.
Got to have a wild card in the lineup. Yeah. That show, Tales from the Backloggd is a much more like try to have like nice, intelligent conversations about the games we're playing. And top 3, we started that way. We were like, let's try to sound smart or whatever. And we quickly realized like this show sucks. So we switched it to just be like, no, let's just be funny. Let's make each other laugh like we have been doing for decades now. And we had a lot of fun with it. And the podcast is still up if anyone wants to go listen. It's not like that different, but it's a different side of me where I'm just like trying to make my friends laugh above anything else.
That's awesome. The switch to like, you know what, actually this is goofier. Actually, this isn't as mature. Like we can just kind of let loose a little bit. That decision sounds like it was pretty natural for you guys. For a lot of creators, that would be a very brave and scary thing to do. Because people get set in their ways, like they start something and they're like, well, it always has to be this way. And I think that's really admirable to realize when something isn't quite right and you redirect.
Well, thank you. But also we had like 5 to 10 listeners, so it wasn't that hard of a decision,
Right.
Like, I remember what it was. We recorded an episode, which I still think is a fun topic. It was top 3 books from English class that didn't suck. And I feel like we each just gave like a 10-minute monologue analysis of like why this book is good. And I was listening back editing and I was like, guys, this sucks. I'm not releasing it. Like no one's going to like this. I don't like this.
It's a book report.
Yeah, it sucked. And so I was like, let's stop trying to sound smart. Let's just make each other laugh. And then we did that for, there's over 100 of them. So we did that for a while.
Oh my gosh.
Heck
wow. Yeah. Well, I will be checking that out. That sounds super interesting.
Thank you.
So we we've got some of this journey that you've taken from podcasting all the way to Tales from the Backlog. But now that you are here with Tales from the Backlog, and that's how we've sort of been introduced to you, what's been fulfilling about doing Tales from the Backlog and like making content out of video games?
I'm going to say 3 things, and I'll say 3 and I'll probably have more, but like number 1, doing things like we're doing right now, like getting the chance to meet you guys and sit down and talk with you guys. Like Bo and I have podcasted before, but getting to sit down with you, Disco, and chat and just continue to form this like group around ourselves of amazing people who make great stuff that I genuinely enjoy. Like I enjoy listening to Underplayed, and now I get to sit on the show and talk with you guys. Like this is awesome. So this is legitimately one of my favorite things about it, and something that I never would have considered or predicted that this would be a part of this. I think a lot of people start a show and they assume they start out by just like making something and sending it out into the void, and the void starts to fill up. Like the more you do it, the more people you meet, especially with Tales from the Backlogs. I'm the only consistent person. It's always me and a guest on the show. And it's always been that way. So I guess like by nature, I've built up this group of people that I've worked with and guested on their shows too and stuff like that. So that's been awesome. It's also fulfilling to like put out an episode and have someone comment and say something like, you helped me put into words what I couldn't before, or you helped me to think about this game in a different way. Even if we don't like perfectly agree, it's also cool when people say like, yeah, man, great, you're right on that. Like that's fun too. But those are really cool. And I started Tales from the Backlog without any expectation of like people listening. I just wanted to like try it because I was listening to some of my favorite podcasts at the time and wanting to join in the conversation and feeling like I had something to bring to the conversation. So it's been fulfilling to now have that conversation and build up a group of people. It's been great. I think that was only 2 things, but I've talked for a while now. I forgot the third one.
That's okay. Maybe we can find a third thing here. So
yeah.
One thing that's kind of cool about shows like ours is when you find something that's specific about the show, but then also something that's universal. Mm-hmm. And the specific part of your show is getting the variety of guests, I think. That's like a big part of it. But then what I see as universal is the idea of the backlog, right? Yeah. That's something that's kind of always in the back of the head of many a gamer is, I have all these games I've never played. You know, how am I going to find the time for that? And the title of your podcast states a mission, you know, it's to tackle that backlog. And so I guess like, how did you come to that?
Yeah, it mainly just came from the fact that I knew I didn't want to be only retro games, and I knew that I didn't want to be trying to keep up with new releases on the show. I wanted to be everything. And I found myself like before I started the show, I was in the Patient Gamers subreddit a lot. I found myself gravitating towards games that are really cheap on sale or on PS Plus or, you know, stuff like that. So when I started the podcast, I knew I would just continue to play the games that I had been playing, which is backlog stuff for the most part. So Tales from the Backlog came from that. It's not necessarily that like the goal is to play everything. It's more so just that that's where I'm pulling most of these games from. And even now, even if I get a review code for a brand new game, I still don't get an episode out right when the embargo lifts. Like I'm just not on that timeline. So by the time people hear my episode, they may have bought it 3 months ago and it's just sitting there in the backlog. So I think it still rings true. Even if I probably play more new releases now than I did when I first started, but we're still on that. You guys want to know a fun fact about the name Tales from the Backlog?
Yes.
The original name was Baby Got Backlog.
What was wrong with that?
Nothing. Well, I'm kind of glad that this happened. I don't think it like totally fits the vibe of the show anymore, but I recorded like the first 8 episodes or so using that name, and then I searched it one final time on Apple Podcasts and found there was already a show.
No
that had that name.
way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they were still putting out episodes. So I was like,
way.
all right, we'll change it. My second choice was Tales from the Backlog, like a Tales from the Crypt reference.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think Tales from the Backlog fits the vibe a lot better than Baby Got Backloggd, but it's a funny piece of podcast trivia.
You did like the inverse of what you did with the top 3 podcasts, where like you started goofy and you got more serious. I like that.
Exactly. Yeah. I still have all like the concept art that my friend drew up for the logo, and it all Baby Got Backlog on there. Maybe I'll show it to people sometime.
We'll use it in the social post promoting this episode.
Yes.
No, we won't. Cool. Well, we will have a link to the show in our show notes in case anybody's listening who has not heard Tales from the Backlog yet. And let's talk about the void that you kind of mentioned. I like the void filling up with people. Can you talk about the ways in which you've created community around the show and around games? I'm thinking of like, your Discord server, you do events, the Patreon picks. Tell us about how you do all that.
Yeah, those things, a lot of them just kind of built up over time. Even the Discord server, I had it for a long time, and I just used Discord to record episodes for a long time. So by the time I decided, like, maybe it'd be fun to have a community Discord, there were already like 60 podcasters in there. And I was like, all right, well, I already trapped these people into being in here, so I think we can start. And so that's how the Discord server started. And then there's just other things that have built up over time. The collaborations are a huge part. Like, by getting to know you, Bo, and getting to know you, Disco, on Twitch and stuff, I'm then exposed to your communities. And if I guest on Underplayed, then your community gets to know me. And Bo comes on Tales from the Backlog, and Bo's part of the family on Tales from the Backlog, and Disco will be sometime, I'm sure. Those kind of like merging of communities happens a bunch too. And so we cross-pollinate in a really cool way, and that helps build community, I feel like. And probably my biggest like successful thing that's like, I can like point to this specifically for bringing people in, has been the backlog resolutions every year, where at the beginning of the year, me and a bunch of the community members, we make lists of the games that have been just sitting in our Steam library or whatever for so long. And we keep telling ourselves like, you know what, I want to play Heaven's Vault someday. And, but not right now, but someday I really hope to play that. And we make a list of like, hey, all those games like that, make a list and like, try and play it. You say you want to play it, give it a shot. And it's turned into something that like really resonates with a lot of people. Cause I don't know, if I open up my Steam library and it's like, I've got 350 games in there, I'm not going to scroll down that big list to look for something to play. So making a smaller list, I think, is helpful. And people like the idea of making lists in general and trying to tackle some goals. And I think it's fun to pull some of those games out that they just be lost in there if I didn't like make it a point. Heaven's Vault was one of them. I'll just keep using that example of a game that I thought I would like and I heard great things about, but there's that I could say the same about 200 other things. And so I just didn't play it. And I put it on that resolutions list and I was like, no, we're actually going to sit down and play Heaven's Vault, and it ended up being incredibly good. And so there's a lot of people who are like, I think they're looking for something similar, and that's brought a lot of people in to join us.
Yeah, it's exciting because you get to see tons of people checking things off their lists. You also get to sort of brag about what you're doing, and everybody shares in the excitement.
And there's like potential accountability there too, which is the hardest thing for me when it comes to like self-imposed goals. I need someone else to know what my goals are so that I can get them done.
Right. And it's a way to eat an elephant one bite at a time, like instead of looking at the list of 300 games and going like, okay, which one am I going to play? Put it on the list. Right. And then it kind of breaks it down into a more manageable next step. Yeah. I know it's going to be sometime this year.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
It's a lot of fun. And like I said, it's been something that a lot of people are looking for, something like that, evidently, because there are a lot of people who have joined specifically for this, to join us in the community effort to pull some of those games off the digital shelf.
Awesome.
Well, we know where you are now with community and Tales from the Backlog, But we want to know a little bit more about what are you when you hatch from that egg? What are your gaming tastes and where do you come from?
Sure. This is a tough one because I would say that my gaming tastes today are kind of reflected in what I kind of first started, but I guess we evolve. We're people. We evolve as we go. So my first console was a Sega Game Gear, and
whoa,
a weird first console, I think.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I can't say that like anything on the Game Gear really influenced my taste today, because I remember playing a lot of like beat 'em ups, and I remember playing Sonic, and I don't like either of those things now. So, but I do like handhelds. I love handheld devices. So maybe that's a start there. And then I got a Game Boy after that. I got Pokemon, and Pokemon was my first like gaming love. And that was in 98. That was in Pokemania time. So Pokemon, I mean, I still love Pokemon. I've played most of them, and I still play the new ones when they come out. So that's there for sure. But I would say the biggest things along the way that shaped my taste in gaming were Pokemon introducing me to RPGs, especially Morrowind on the Xbox, introducing me to Western RPGs, or like a more computer style RPG, and maybe something like Bastion on the Xbox 360, really opening the floodgates for indie games, to just be like, a friend recommends this game. It's not by a company I've heard of before, it's cheap and it's only available digitally. And I pick it up just based on his recommendation, and I love it. And then I'm like, it's so different from everything else I'm playing. I had no concept of indie games at the time that I played Bastion. And this was on the Xbox 360 when I first played it. And that kind of just opened up this door of like, oh, there's so many other things out there. Maybe we can stop buying Madden every year and seek out more of these things. Because I played Madden for every year until then too. And then I think the other one is Dark Souls. When I first played that kind of rewired my brain in a really fun way.
Yeah. Bastion is definitely in that first like wave of indie games, like in that first era. If you could break down the timeline of indie games into eras, like that was in the earlier era for sure.
Yeah, the one that we often reference is Limbo. And like that was the same deal when I played Limbo. I didn't have like a concept of what's an indie game, but it was so different from everything that I played before it.
Yeah, Dave, we're slowly knocking out all those like OG indies on our show with like our featured games. So like we've done Super Meat Boy and Limbo. We're going to do Flower soon, and Journey. Bastion's one of those too.
We haven't done that one yet. I haven't played, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. I haven't replayed Bastion since then. I played all the Supergiant games up until Hades 2, but I played all of them until last year, and I'd be curious to revisit Bastion and see what I think. Like, there's a lot of stuff I know it's going to be awesome when I revisit it, like the music and the art, the narrator and stuff like that. Like, I'm going to like it, I think. But Bastion and Geometry Wars back in those days, like, really opened my eyes to indie games. And, we're here talking about a very large indie game today, but an indie game nonetheless. And a lot of the things that you guys talk about on the show are things that I like and play. So I would have played something eventually, indie wise, but Bastion was the one that really opened that up.
That's cool. Well, speaking of indies, you've played so many indies, in recent years too. And so we value your perspective on this. What do you notice about indie games the last few years? Which ones have left an indelible mark on you?
I think the biggest trend that I love in indie games is for people getting the capability to tell really specific personal stories, and then now having the accessibility of the tools to turn that into a game and get it out there. And it's really hard for indie devs to find publishers, and it's really hard for games to get discovered. But like, when those things hit, it doesn't necessarily have to be Silksong to get discovered. Like, one of my favorites from last year was Despelote, which I mean, it's like by definition, it's a game. You walk around kicking a soccer ball and you can like, you can try to kick bottles with the soccer ball and stuff like that. Like it's a game, but it's an art project and like an autobiographical story more than that. And those are the types of games that I think have had a lot of impact on me. Playing stuff like that feels very specific to like one person's experience or like a small group of people. Like before that, my game of the year for 2024 was 1000 Times Resist, which it's like a universal experience, but you can really feel the creative touch of the specific people that made that game. And I think those are the indies that like really leave that lasting impression. Is like, I played a game, I got a story that I think is pretty cool, but like I had a conversation with the person who made it, in a way. And that's not necessarily the case with, I love Dark Souls, but I don't feel like I'm having a conversation with the gameplay designers of Dark Souls in the same way as I did when I played 1000 Times Resist. And you could take so much of like their background in interdisciplinary arts and their background as Asian Canadian diaspora, second generation, like those specific experiences. And the cool thing is that's not my experience. And so I'm like, I'm learning when I play these a lot of times. And those are really the ones that leave that mark for me.
Yeah, I love the idea of having a conversation with the game creators. It's the same sort of feeling you imagine some artists want out of people who visit their gallery, like at a museum, like a lot of artists wish for that. Like, I want this to make such an impression on someone that they have an experience they wouldn't have otherwise gotten. And to tell a story to them too, while we're at it. Tell them a little bit about me or my people or my country or about history. We feel the same way. We've talked about lots of those kinds of games. I also really enjoyed the Despelote episode of Tales from the Backlog recently. Yeah.
Thank you. Shout out to Moises. He's the best. He's the guest on that episode.
He was really passionate about it. Yeah, that was a good one.
Well, we've talked about your past, talked about recent history. What are you looking forward to doing next? It could be gaming-wise, could be dinner if you haven't eaten. What's coming up?
Well, I'm always looking forward to dinner or lunch or, whatever's next. Always looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to continuing just like all those things I talked about with the show. I'm looking forward to having new guests on my show. I'm looking forward to reconnecting with previous guests. I'm looking forward to going to PAX East. Like, that's going to be fun. That's one of my favorite times of the year because that's when, like, usually when I talk to you guys, for example, it's within this context of like, we're talking about a game, we're talking about podcasting, we're talking about what we do and specifically this. Or like on my show, it's kind of weird if you think about it to sit down and like hyperfixate on one game for 2.5 hours. Like, it's not a conversation I would have out in the wild. So it's fun to go to PAX and just like hang out. And we're just like, we don't really talk about games that much. We're just hanging out, having fun, being friends, going and getting meals together, getting some drinks, going to karaoke, like stuff like that. Really look forward to that too. So a lot of stuff to look forward to. Like, I love doing this and I look forward to most of it. I look forward to playing new games, chatting with new people and old people alike.
Love it. Well, Dave, before we move on from this section, can you just give listeners some info on where they can find you and your content online?
Sure. Yeah. Again, the podcast is called Tales from the Backlog, and it is on all the podcast apps. It's also on YouTube if you like to watch or second screen your podcasts. We have it on YouTube as well. It's always me with a different guest talking about one game per episode. And the one thing I guess I would like people to know about the show, in addition to all that, is every episode is no spoiler for a while. So it's usually like an hour or so of no spoiler podcasting. So we talk about as much as we can in as deep as we can without touching on spoilers. Then we warn you spoilers are coming. Then we take a break. And after that, full spoiler time, get out if you don't want to be spoiled. And I do that so if you think that you might want to check out the show, you can check out any episode. Doesn't matter if you played the game, if you're curious about it, any episode is fair, is you can listen worry-free.
Awesome. Great pitch there. Thank you for telling us about this brief history of Tales from the Backloggd and even what came before, a little bit where your taste came from and such. But Dave, we're not done with you yet. We also are going to review the game you chose from our list. Our featured game today is Hollow Knight: Silksong. Hollow Knight: Silksong is a 2025 Metroidvania developed and published by Team Cherry. The game synopsis from the Steam storefront reads, quote, discover a vast haunted kingdom in Hollow Knight: Silksong, explore, fight, and survive as you ascend to the peak of a land ruled by silk and song, end quote. So Hollow Knight: Silksong takes place in the land of Farloom, where our character Hornet is taken to after being captured. Hornet was a boss in the first Hollow Knight. We fought Hornet a couple times, and she returns as our protagonist here. And there's this affliction in Farloom known as the Haunting, where bugs are possessed by silk. When you arrive in Farloom, you break free, and you discover that this is kind of a land of pilgrims. There are a lot of bugs that are trying to ascend to the Citadel at the top. And you begin at the bottom of the land. Hornet goes on this mission to reach the Citadel to find answers and the secrets behind her connection to this world. You've got lots of notable NPCs that you're encountering in this game. You've got I'm only going to name a few, but there are just seemingly countless characters you can run into. But some of the notable ones are Sherma. There's a small pilgrim bug you encounter several times. There's Chakra, who is a warrior cartographer. You've got the Bell Beasts that you can use to fast travel. There's a caravan of fleas you're rescuing. There's someone called the Caretaker that you encounter later on. And there are lots of other adventurers and merchants and quest givers you run into. But that's what I would say to briefly set up the world and the story.
Yeah, very brief. Nice. For gameplay, I've got it pretty brief as well. You can jump. You have a melee attack with your needle. And I'm going to do my best to not use Hollow Knight 1 terms. Like it's not a nail, it's a needle. I'm gonna do my best.
If you mix it up, we'll know what you're talking about. Yeah. Because I will probably do that too. Yeah.
You also have access to a bit of a pogo. This is one of the primary differences between controlling Hornet and controlling the Knight from the previous game. Your pogo activates with the same input, but activates at a downward angle instead of straight down. I'm diving deep into this because it's the main thing that is kind of like hard for people to get the hang of that have played Hollow Knight. That's like the primary and first complaint I hear from people. Or not complaint, just like notable difference. Mm-hmm. There are also different unlockables that change your mobility and the way you play. You get things like the sprint dash, you get a glide, and there's a lot more, but those are ones that are early and pretty instrumental for a lot of the game. You also get things called crests, and these sort of change the way Hornet attacks and might have some other passive abilities. I actually only found one, so I don't know the extent to which these change the game. But yeah, each crest has different types and amounts of tools that you can equip, and tools are sort of similar to like charms in Hollow Knight. And again, I don't know if tools is the right word.
I think it is, yeah. I've been using charms and I've been using charms instead of tools when I talk about this game. That's where I mix up terminology. Yeah.
There are also a significant number of side quests. In this game, they are referred to as wishes. So you can opt to grant someone's wish. And it's basically just a side quest, whether it's a fetch quest or defeating so many enemies or whatever. And you will often be rewarded with something. You also have a map, which for people like me is critical for making your way around the even more vast world of Farloom. And at a very basic level, that's the kind of gameplay you can expect. It's a Metroidvania. You know, you got the map, you got the shortcuts, everything's connected. jump and slash and earn more upgrades.
Yeah, definitely. Silksong was originally planned as DLC for the first Hollow Knight, but it was announced as its own standalone game way back in 2019. And if you take all the development time for the game, it amounts to 7 to 8 years. There was lots of anticipation from the gaming community, not just indie game fans, but just everybody, it seems, was clamoring for info over the years. I remember every time there was a Nintendo showcase, people would expect an announcement or a re-announcement.
I think other than Half-Life 3, this might be the most anticipated game of all time.
Right, especially when it comes to sequels. But then Silksong was announced during the summer, just this past year. I think 6 to 8 weeks out from its release, it got an announcement of a release date, which was very surprising. Same month release as Hades 2 and lots of other indies, but 2 very highly anticipated indie game sequels releasing in September of 2025. It was just a wild month. And it won numerous accolades. It was a smash success, of course. There's been a DLC called Sea of Sorrow that has been announced for 2026, so they're going to continue updating the game like they did with the first Hollow Knight. So that's the intro to the game. Now, Dave, our guest today, you looked at our list of featured game ideas. It's a pretty long list. We usually ask guests to pick around 5 games as a short list, and then from that list, we whittle it down to the one. When you looked at the list, Hollow Knight Silksong might have been freshly released, or we knew it was coming out imminently. This was when we were talking to you early on. But you picked Hollow Knight Silksong pretty early on. Why did you pick it from our list?
Yeah, so like you said, Bo, I was thinking about this, and I don't remember if Silksong had just been, like, the release date had just been announced, or like if it was even before that. But I remember looking at your list and being like, oh, they've got Silksong on the list. It's going to be interesting to talk about at the very least. Like, I don't know if it's going to be good or not, but it's going to be interesting. And the original Hollow Knight is one of my favorite games of all time. Before Silksong, and this might be a little bit of a spoiler of how I feel about the game, but Hollow Knight was my favorite Metroidvania of all time by a pretty wide margin. I think that, like, it set the bar by which, especially like combat and exploration focused Metroidvanias are measured by. There's other weird stuff like Animal Well, they're playing by their own rules, but the fact that I loved Hollow Knight so much and I knew Silksong would be interesting, that's why I picked it.
Awesome. And we're glad you picked it because we knew it'd be a big game, a gargantuan game. And it's just always good to talk about big games with really cool guests. So thank you so much for being willing to talk about it. And now, if you could, go into your overall thoughts on the game.
Yeah. So I kind of teased there. I said Hollow Knight was my favorite Metroidvania of all time. And now I think that I don't know that I would say that Silksong is better than Hollow Knight. It's different. There's ways that it's different. But I think that I connected with Silksong on more levels than Hollow Knight. So maybe this is my new favorite Metroidvania ever. And there's a lot of stuff about the game, I'm sure we'll get into, that's like pretty divisive out there about it. There's a bit of a learning curve with how difficult the combat is and how difficult, or not difficult, but how idiosyncratic your platforming is at the beginning of the game. And when they start throwing real challenges at you, it seems to hit some people the wrong way. And it did a little bit for me too, but I wasn't ready to give up on it. So I kept going, and I eventually started to really resonate with the challenge of it. I started to really resonate with the story. I think that Team Cherry are masters at making their games feel good to play, and that makes the challenge a lot more fun to overcome because everything responds the way that I hope it will. And I can always see the light at the end of the tunnel whenever there's a big challenge, whether it's platforming or whether it's combat. I know that the platforming controls are so snappy that I'm not going to lose because the game ate one of my inputs or something like that. And I'm not going to lose a boss fight because they designed an unfair hateful challenge. I really think that they're masters at this type of game. So I came out of this just like totally blown away. I don't know about you two, but you mentioned like the long dev cycle, all the memes, all the expectations. And when we get these stories throughout gaming, AAA, indie, doesn't matter. When we have these like long protracted developments and like Team Cherry went radio silent for a long time, and those stories just don't turn out well very often. It normally means there's something wrong. And then they're like, okay, well, we finished the game. And they're like, here it is. Here's the game. I hope with this just disappears. Like Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 came out recently. Really long development hell, widely reported like a bunch of management shakeups and stuff. Like it changed development teams at least one time. And the game came out and a bunch of people were like, this isn't very good. And we can feel the development time and all the troubles. And so I started to think like, is Silksong going to have that issue? Is it going to be a mess? And then the game came out. I started playing it. I also read the interview with Jason Schreier where they were like, the game took so long because we were having so much fun making it. That's why it took so long.
It turns out there weren't shakeups. It turns out there weren't disagreements on the team. It turns out they are a small but mighty team of artisans who would just wake up every day and every one of them is like painting the Mona Lisa every day. And then they go to bed and then they do it. They each do that again the next day. And they do that for 7 to 8 years. And then they realize, you know what? We just aren't releasing our game because we just keep creating our game. We should just put out a release date so that we force ourselves to stop. Exactly. And that's how Silksong came out.
Yeah. And so I finally got it in the hands and I was like, oh man, this is just so good. Like all those worries just evaporated. It's really good. So that's like my top level thoughts and giving it a score out of 10. Yeah.
Yes. Score out of 10.
Yeah. This is a 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10s don't mean that there's nothing to criticize, but a 10 out of 10 to me, a perfect score in situations where I have to give a score, is for a game that hits on the cylinders that it's trying to hit on. It has an intended effect and it knocks that out of the park. And I think Silksong does that. It's an easy 10 out of 10 for me. There's little bits where I'm like, I don't like this little decision that you made, but like in the grand scheme of things, 10 out of 10.
Amazing. I love it. DiscoCola, how about you?
So I actually went back and listened to our Hollow Knight episode this last week, and I realized that a lot of my complaints that really like held me back were about like completion and difficulty. I don't really hold games to completion standards anymore for the most part. But I do hold, that difficulty standard, and I found that Silksong surpassed difficulty of Hollow Knight, and so some of my complaints that I had for Hollow Knight in terms of difficulty will be here in Silksong. But when it comes down to it, like I was never worried that Silksong was going to be a bad game. I was never afraid. I knew that when it came, it was going to be great. And the only thing that I was worried about is that it would be way harder. And to a point, that's what happened. But as for things that I want to just point out notably that I liked, I liked most of this game. I love the look of Farloom. I think the various zones of Farloom are far more cohesive than Hallownest, and especially once we get into the Citadel, there's a great story being told with the appearance of the different areas of the Citadel, the enemies, and even down to details like things that you have to pay rosaries for that you don't necessarily have to pay rosaries for in other areas. Yeah. That's telling a story. And I think that is so intelligent and super cool. And there's this like speakerphone that Hornet can find where you give confession. And that if you got that moment, it's just like, oh, I love the story they're telling with this environment. And it's really cool. I think the boss designs in this game are incredible. And this game even features what is now possibly my favorite boss fight and design in all of video games. And I'll go into that when we talk about bosses. But all of the ones that I fought at least looked cool, even if they were frustrating. But some of them were just awesome and fun to fight. I love the wishes. even though I didn't really have time to like sit down and focus on them to the level that I really did want to. What it does is it gives me something to focus on while I'm re-exploring previous areas. So I get a mobility upgrade like 10 minutes before the end of the game, but there's so much stuff at the beginning of the game that I didn't explore because I didn't have this upgrade and I couldn't reach certain places. So when I have these wishes active, it gives me something to focus on. It gives me a task while I'm going through the tedium of re-exploring old areas and trying to remember, have I explored that corner? Have I not? It doesn't matter because now I have this wish active and I can work on something else while I'm filing my taxes, essentially. I think the progression and especially the little like cutscenes are just make for a really high quality experience altogether. And Hollow Knight had some of that, but Silksong really took it to the next level. Like when I'm reaching the top of the cradle, like the small little 8-second cutscene before that is just immaculate. I love it. As for things that I struggled with, I do kind of feel like Team Cherry fell into a similar trap that Heart Machine did, and that is that they made a game, their first game, that was considered to be difficult, and so follow-ups just have to kick it up a notch. And I think at a base level that this game is, I hate to say objectively harder, but I do think that's the case. I think it is objectively harder, and it seems intentional, and if so, I just kind of fundamentally disagree with the philosophy that sequels have to be harder. I think that difficulty levels can remain consistent across a series, and the way that like Hornet plays and the world of Farloom is different enough that it's a separation from the previous game without having to like also boost that difficulty level. Like the world is different, the gameplay is different enough that you don't have to also boost the difficulty.
Yeah.
But that's coming from a Mega Man fan, and normal gamers did get sick of Mega Man games. So maybe I'm wrong, but that's where I'm coming from with that. At the most shallow and explicit level, I'm not necessarily connecting with the lore in the game. And that's because many characters and all of the lore tablets are just like speaking at this level of language that never connects with me.
Yeah, it's cryptic.
Yeah. I think the different areas of the Citadel do way more storytelling than the actual explicit dialogue. Though I did appreciate the tragedy in characters like Lace that we do get through that dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Next, I don't dislike the angled pogo. I do wish that the hitbox for pogo objects was a bit larger. I think it's a little bit too easy to miss in these like platforming pogo sections.
There's a section in, I want to say it's Hunter's March.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
There's a section.
It's sort of like, hey, you're going to learn this now if you haven't learned this yet. And I just remember that's like the trial.
That's
right?
the first trial.
And I think that's where most people feel this, right?
Yeah, and then I felt like I mastered it in Hunter's March, and then I got to the blasted steps, which challenged me again. And I've found more difficulty with that section than the Hunter's March, even though there's fewer like platforms to pogo on. This is a smaller complaint, but I don't really like how maps are handled in the latter part of the game. Without giving away too much, one of the things that I look forward to is hearing Chakra or Cornifer, and we don't necessarily get that the same way in the second part of the game. And in many cases, I would like explore that entire zone before I ever stumble onto the map, and then by the time I actually get to the map, I had just recently put myself in a situation where I lost all my rosaries, so I got to the map and I can't even buy it.
Yeah, I found myself in a lot of situations where I am just kind of climbing through the darkness, don't have the map yet, and I get to a fork in the road, and I think, gosh, the map's going to be in one of these directions. And so you just end up doing that inevitable thing of, I'm going to creep a little bit this way. I'm not seeing the map. I'm going to go back the other way, just in case. Like, what if it's going through the doorway and it's right there?
Yeah.
So then you creep back the other way. Oh, it's not there. I'm going to go a little bit further in the other. That's how I play these games sometimes.
Yeah.
When I'm trying to find the thing that I just want before I can make the extra long progress.
Yeah, and then at a certain point, it's like, I've invested enough time and my deadline is coming up. I am going to look it up. So I did look up a couple of map locations and a couple of item locations. Speaking of, there is a double jump in this game, and I actually found it a bit disruptive, which is unusual. Sometimes I want to glide without doing that second jump, but that's kind of like a hard thing to do, a hard thing to master. So like, once I get the double jump, something that I think should be the greatest reward in a platformer kind of has me fumbling in certain areas. So the double jump wasn't the, perfect Christmas present that I wanted. It caused a little bit of trouble at first. But that's really it. I think the wait was worth it. I think playing as Hornet feels great. I think Farloom is an incredibly attractive level, area, world. I love so much about this, and I really want to go all the way and complete the game. I know that there's a lot of really difficult stuff waiting for me, and I barely made it to the finish line as it is, but I just love these kinds of games, and completing it sounds really fun. So I hope that I get the chance and the time to do that. My main sticking point is difficulty, though. Like I said, I barely beat the last 2 bosses. So because of that, and I know that there are even more severe bosses coming, I will leave this at a 9.5 for similar reasons that I did for Hollow Knight.
Yeah, that sounds fair. Well, if I go into my overall thoughts, which are going to be pretty brief because, you guys have touched on a lot of what I agree with, I would kind of just say this game is masterful with everything that it does. I freaking love this game. I'm with you, Dave, where Hollow Knight 1 was my favorite Metroidvania. I think this tops it for me. And it could be recency, but there are things this game does that I think just draw me in more. And I think the main thing is Hornet. I think Hornet as a protagonist is inherently more interesting to me than the Knight in Hollow Knight. I just don't remember getting as much from the Knight, right? You get a lot from that world. You get a lot from those characters. I love the way Hornet interacts with this world and the way she discovers things about herself, and she discovers all the layers and the way that she speaks. She's just this very cool, composed, heroic character that I admire a lot. Like every time I play Hollow Knight Silksong, I'm like, I get to play one of the coolest characters I've ever played. And I just love the world, the story, including the environment. The environmental story is so well done. And I'm also picking up on those little details, like paying for the rosaries at certain spots to get like a bench. Mm-hmm. It makes sense given where we are in those places. There are hundreds of instances of things like that. The writing is so phenomenal, even when I don't always understand some of the more cryptic lore that I'm reading on a tablet. It is the dialogue that I'm really getting a lot of character and personality from. I love how, and I think Hollow Knight 1 touts this too, but I just love how wonderfully weird all the side characters are too. All the quest givers have their quirks. There are people who are more serious, but I think of like New, who gives you the hunter's journal, and they try to kiss you, like, and you can smack them. And so this game makes me laugh too. And I didn't expect that. It's full of joyous little surprises, but it also has these tragic characters that I just really feel for because they live such tortured lives. I really love the movement and the gameplay mechanics. They're tight and responsive. Like Dave said, everything you do is happening the way you expect. If you fail, it's because the game is challenging and you haven't learned how to overcome that challenge yet, but you chip away at it. And that's one of my favorite feelings in games, when we overcome challenges because we practice, we feel ourselves getting better in the moment. The soundtrack by Christopher Larkin is incredible. I was listening to that as I was driving over here. And just all the sound effects. This game has changed how I kind of like sing to myself. Sometimes I sing to myself as I'm showering or getting ready in the morning. And depending on what kind of media I've absorbed recently, it'll affect what I sing to myself. I sing the chakra little theme that you hear her say. Yeah, I sing that to myself, So this game has affected me in that way. I have some dislikes too. This game is going to be a 10 out of 10 for me. I'm just spoiling that.
Oh, I saw your backlog list. Right. When it was ahead of Hollow Knight, I knew. Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, it's so true that even if a game's a 10 out of 10, that doesn't mean it's without flaws. And I think this game has many wishes that feel unimaginative to me. A lot of the quest boards that give you like a task to do, like contributing rosaries and shards to build up a town, or just hunt a specific number of an enemy, like that kind of feels a little repetitive. So I'm thinking of just times where we're donating or carrying ingredients back. It can just feel a little fetch questy or just not exciting. There are areas I don't enjoy, like Bile Water. I'm sure we'll get into more specific examples, but like I find some places just obscenely annoying. But this game has a couple dozen different areas. So it's just, you know, a complaint I have with an area in a sea of amazing areas that I love traversing. And even in the end, I don't have a huge problem with it once I get used to it. So I can go back to Bile Water to do Chakra's quests about her master. You know, I have no problems with that. But there is part of me that's like, I got to go back there. Okay, let's do it. And then the last thing I would point out as a dislike is just there's a hill you kind of have to climb for unlocking Act 3. And I thought it was a little too tall, and I thought it was a little bit too mysterious. I wish I didn't have to look things up about unlocking an entire act of the game. I found myself having to go to the wiki to just access entire large swaths of the game. And so I wish I didn't have to do that. But overall, if Hollow Knight set a new bar for Metroidvanias, Silksong sets a new bar for indie game sequels, in my opinion. I just think this game is masterful. So I give it a 10 out of 10 as well, very enthusiastically. I've been playing the game a lot this past week. I first got to the end of Act 2 last year, sometime in, I want to say in November or so. And then I've returned to it this past week. I've put another like 25 hours into it, getting to Act 3. I haven't finished Act 3, but I'm well into it. And in all that extra time, I've done so many wishes. I've found so many fleas and fought so many extra bosses. So it's fresh on my mind, but as I'm playing the game, I'm also like thinking back to my first playthrough of Hollow Knight 1. So I guess as you're making your way through Silksong, how would you compare the two games?
I think the main thing, the biggest difference to me, aside from the way the difficulty ramps up, and you can feel this game's origins as DLC, like end game difficulty level DLC.
Oh.
The biggest change is the story. Like, the story is much more on Front Street in this game than the Hollow Knight. In Hollow Knight, you just like arrive at the town and they're like, I don't know, man, go underground, like check what's down there. And you just kind of go down and explore. And then it's like they guide you on the path they want you to go on by just kind of teasing you. Like Hornet jumps out and Hornet goes to a place that you can't access, but you're like, I should probably find a way to get up there, right? Like that's going to be the important thing. And it is. But you don't know the story of Hollow Knight really for a long, long time.
Yeah, you don't find out about the Dreamers
Right.
until you find that place. Yeah, it takes a while. You're just kind of wandering and fighting things.
There's like a sneaky amount of story in Hollow Knight, but it's buried and you have to play for a while before they start giving you little morsels of it. Whereas in Silksong, it's like right from the beginning, Hornet gets captured in the opening cutscene. And you're like, okay, so someone captured Hornet. They want something with her. Mm-hmm. She's being like carried in this prison transport. And you can see that there's some kind of magic that's like stopping her from using her powers. And then it crashes and you get out and someone is like, oh, someone kidnapped you? It's probably the folks from the Citadel way up high. Maybe you want to head up there, follow the path of the pilgrims, go up to the Citadel. So you immediately in Silksong have this very clear goal of, I got to get to the Citadel up there. And you always know, like, this is a level in world design difference too. Whereas in Hollow Knight, you're always going down or down and over to the side, but always down. And in Silksong, your goal is always up. I need to go up to the Citadel. Thematically good with the pilgrimage that you're on, you know, symbolism of games that have you going up all the time versus games that have you going down all the time. There's storytelling in that. But you always know, like, if I don't know where to go, I should try to find a way to go up in Silksong, up to the Citadel. And the goal is to find out, why did they kidnap you? Why did they kidnap Hornet? What do they want from Hornet? Even if you go to the edge of the map and try to walk off the world map, Hornet will be like, if I leave, they're just going to chase me. So I got to go back and figure out what they want. Yeah. So that's the biggest difference to me, is like Hollow Knight was very mysterious about its story. And if you really want to know what's going on in the story of Hollow Knight, you have to be a lore hound. You have to like write stuff down, try and remember what this NPC says, and I don't know, get your corkboard out and stuff, like try and figure this out in a very Dark Souls way of storytelling. Whereas in Silksong, there's people everywhere to talk to. There's a very clear story that, like, even if you play and don't, you know, go hunting for all that stuff, if you don't read the item descriptions, if you don't read those little artifacts that you pick up, you're still going to understand the basic gist of the story in Silksong. That's not true for Hollow Knight, I don't think.
Going back to the game this past week, I found myself kind of wondering, have I kind of forgotten too much to enjoy the story? And as I made more progress, I'm talking to characters and it made complete sense. So like, that's a huge compliment I can give to this game that I can't necessarily to the first.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and at a certain point, and this is even more true with Hollow Knight, but like, even if you don't absorb enough of the story, like you get the gist. Just again, through the environmental storytelling, especially in like the choral chambers. And there's a certain moment that happens there related to Silk, and you're like, oh yeah, now I understand again, like why Hornet is such an important character in this world. Like I understand again. So even at just like the most stripped down, if you're not absorbing parts of the story, like you get the most important part as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The emphasis on storytelling it felt like a very clear thing that Team Cherry has. I don't want to say that they've like improved on it, but they've definitely chosen to make it more of a thing. Like, we're going to tell a more overt, more understandable story. And that doesn't mean there's not going to be any depth. Like, the story, there's so much rich lore to uncover. Like, you get the needle in, and every character has a song that they'll sing that gives you more lore about them and their beliefs and stuff like that. And so, like, there are more layers to it, but that top layer is exposed for everyone to follow in a way that I think is really cool, because like you said, Bo, Hornet, the character, talks, unlike the Knight. The Knight was a silent character. The Knight's, you know, debatably alive or not alive, you know. Hornet's very clearly a living character with motivations and history and desires and things like that. And Hornet talks to everyone. There's a lot of writing, a lot of dialogue in this game, and it's all really well written. I love talking to everybody. But you see the world through Hornet's eyes, and Hornet knows stuff, and she'll comment on stuff and like help teach you a little bit without doing that video game thing where they're like, well, as you know, I come from these people and yada, yada, yada. Like there's none of that. It's just really, really interesting. All the ways that they've woven the story into it.
And then there's also just, you talked about going up is the general goal here rather than going down. That's a really quick way you could pitch this game to a newcomer. Like, hey, if you start playing this game and you're kind of struggling on where to go, just try to think about going up. Any other comparisons you make gameplay wise between the two games?
That pogo is a big difference. The difference between pogoing straight down and then pogoing at that 45-degree angle, it takes a long time to get used to. And I love that they did it, because that's what Hornet did when you fought Hornet as a boss fight in the first game. Like, they've made a commitment to you're not playing a reskin character. You're playing someone totally different. And a lot of the moveset is similar, but you're a different person with different skills. And that took some getting used to. It's funny, you guys mentioned the Hunter's March platforming area. That was your like trial by fire.
Yeah.
I saw that and I just turned around and left. I was like, I'll do that later. Hunter's March is 100% optional. You don't have to go there.
Yeah, our friend Grant was like, you shouldn't bother with Hunter's March right now. And I'm like, it's the only place I've found that I can travel through.
Yeah. But because there's a big mini boss guy guarding the entrance to Hunter's March that I found, and I didn't have the dash yet. He's a hard boss if you don't have the dash.
Yeah,
and he just smashed me a couple of times, and I was like, I'll come back here later. I came back like 15 hours later. I had a whole new pogo move by the time I came back.
Amazing.
And I was like, okay, Hunter's March, we're doing this. But it does take some time to get used to that. I was editing my podcast and I had some gameplay footage in there. I was watching like my first hour playing the game, just really just whiffing on a bunch of those pogos because it's so different. But I like the commitment to being like, no, this is a different game. You're a different character. Learn the differences between them.
Yeah, and it's never necessary, but I feel like the game pushes you toward implementing more and more inputs into making a complicated series of platforming. Like I found myself getting used to remembering to dash, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's kind of new. We don't always get that in a Metroidvania, so I'm trying to dash as much as I can. And then when I am floating, maybe, or I am doing like a grapple to cover a short distance, sometimes I find that I push that run button to just get another quick dash out of the air.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm using that too. And I feel like the game never explicitly, forces me to, but I feel compelled to, just to close the gap, just to make sure I get there. And so over time, the amount of inputs I'm doing is increasing.
Yeah.
And I just feel much more capable by the end.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me what I was experiencing with Proto Droid recently. But I love doing stuff like that too. What else as far as gameplay? The idea of the crests is a fascinating concept to me because, like, if you think back to Hollow Knight, you can sort of build the same idea as the crests, but you're building it piece by piece with different charms.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, it's more akin to like a Cult of the Lamb cloak, kind of.
Oh.
But even a step further. And again, I only found one crest. I only know how one of the crests works. But it changed like melee combat and healing in a very substantial way. And so I like that idea of like, you don't have to make this intricate synergistic build of charms. You just change your crest, and then whatever tools you decide are the most necessary or could boost that the best. I don't know. I found that to be an interesting change.
It's like you're choosing a play style almost rather than choosing components of a build. I think I missed one of the crests, but it's like, this is your like heavy combat crest. And then this is your exploring crest where you can't equip any combat tools in it. So it's like, if you're exploring, you're not fighting bosses, hey, maybe switch over to that. You have your other crest that's like, this one's built around silk skills and it will like help you refill your silk faster and stuff like that. So if you're, find yourself needing to heal a lot in bosses, maybe switch over to that. And there's several that change your pogo to something more familiar or something different in a little bit different way. There's a couple of real out there crests also, like they're very, very different. That I tried at one time and I was like, oh, no. I don't know about you two, but like when I found myself needing to change my crest, it was usually because I was fighting a tough boss and I'm going through like, what's in my toolkit? What am I not using that might help me get a leg up? But because the crests change the way you move, it often like introduced more discomfort into the fight. Then I would go back to the moveset that I was familiar with and just like maybe switch a tool out, or maybe just be like, nah, just lock in and give this boss more attempts and learn the old fashioned way. I think the crests are an imperfect system. but I do appreciate how I can like kind of tailor, like, how am I playing Silksong right now?
And the way you've described that brings me back to another point about the first Hollow Knight, in that I hated changing out my charms for different situations. I just like...
You want the best all-around build.
Yes. I found a super, all situation build. And then if I like found a bench close to a boss, I would take off my compass and put something else on. And that would be the extent of it. I would find like an all-purpose build and then learn the boss that way. But like, yeah, with Silksong, if I find that I just can't, if I'm taking too many hits against this boss, I'm changing to that crest that basically gives me vampirism, the only crest I found. And so I actually did change for different situations in this game, which is not something I usually do.
That's great. So I would get a new crest and I would equip it just to swipe a few times, play around with it. Okay, I kind of get a feel for it. And then I went back to the Hunter's Crests. I used the Hunter's Crests the entire game, like the base crests, because the game's already hard enough. In my mind, if I change to a new crest, it is adding that extra difficulty, like you said. Like I'm sort of losing the progress I might have made with grinding on a boss, so I'm just going to tough it out. So that might not have been as efficient in the end, but I guess we got a variety of experiences here with trying new things, and that's cool. I'm glad you got to do that.
Yeah, I used the Reaper crest for the whole game after I found it. That was the one that gave me the movement that I liked the most. So I stuck with that because the boss fights they're much more mobile. I felt like more acrobatic playing Silksong than the first Hollow Knight, at least like for, until like the end game Hollow Knight. When you're fighting the Radiance or something, then you're acrobatic. But I felt that the base gameplay in Silksong was a lot more acrobatic. So I needed to have like my best control over movement. And the Reaper crest felt like it gave me that.
Nice. Very cool. Speaking of crests and tools and charms, one other comparison I would make, and it's kind of an unfortunate one, is just something I was hoping they would improve going from Hollow Knight 1 to Hollow Knight 2. Is in Hollow Knight 1, if you wanted a marker on your map to represent you, you had to burn a charm slot to equip a compass or whatever it was called. And here it's the same story. I was so disappointed. You have to equip a tool. You have to use up one of your precious tool slots to equip a compass. And I fundamentally disagree with that choice. I don't know if either of you have an argument for it. I'd welcome that, actually. Help me see the light on this. But I always thought, like, if I had 6 tool slots, I would think, I really only have 5. I didn't see the compass as using one of them. I saw it as, I'm burning one.
Yeah. Okay,
so I agree that it would be better if it was just a default thing that showed you where you are on your map. I think it should be. However, I think they did change one thing in Silksong that makes it less of a burden than it is in Hollow Knight. And it's that they placed all of the different tools in categories. And most of the navigation tools, I'm perfectly happy without. And so when I'm equipping my compass to one of the navigation tool slots, it's less of a burden because it's like, I don't really care that I don't have this shard one, and I don't really care that my purse isn't that much bigger.
Fair.
So less of a burden in this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, the yellow category ones is what you're talking about. Those are, on average, less appealing to me. And if I equip the Hunter crest, I get 2 red tools, 2 blue tools, 2 yellow tools. So that is, I guess, less of a disappointing way to look at it, is I'm burning one of the yellow slots, which I don't even find that compelling to begin with.
Right.
So, okay. I hear you on that.
But that's all I got. That's all I got for you.
Yeah.
It's interesting talking about this and a couple of the other things that I had that I was thinking about for this, like what could we improve or what's missing? A lot of them are things that were this way in the original Hollow Knight. So they've made a deliberate decision not to fix things that were common complaints from the first game, such as having to equip the compass, such as the benches being really far apart in a lot of cases, such as the game having boss runs from bench to boss, including some truly like
just
trying boss runs.
Horrible, rude is the word.
There's a lot of choice words that people would have for some of these boss runs. And it's interesting to me whenever a developer puts out a game, it's really good. There are really common complaints though. And this was a common complaint about Hollow Knight was there were not enough benches and the boss runs. And people also didn't like the corpse run mechanic, which they did really improve in Silksong. It's much more meaningful now. But it's just interesting to me that they said, no, actually, we like the decision to have the boss runs here. We like the decision for you to sacrifice for convenience to have the compass on. And there's a lot of other ways that this game has deliberately chosen to go against like contemporary quality of life stuff. And the compass being like just a thing is a quality of life thing that, for example, I don't know if either of you played Signalis. Have you guys done that on the show?
It's on our featured game list.
I haven't played it yet.
Future game list. Okay. Signalis had a really common complaint that you only have like 6 inventory slots and your flashlight takes up one of them. So like the compass, you have 5 inventory slots because you need the flashlight. It's a horror game. And they eventually patched that out to make it not take up an inventory spot after a bunch of fan criticism. And Team Cherry were like, no, you want the convenience, you pay for it. Otherwise, if you think something else is more worthwhile, equip that, or, take it off before you go into a boss fight because you don't need the compass in there. So it's interesting that they made that choice. I want to get your take on this because this is in the wish list for improvements. Boss runs. There's 2 schools of thought. I see the benefits of both schools of thought here. The one school of thought is when you're doing the boss run and all you want to do is practice the boss, and having to do like a 3 to 5 minute boss run in between attempts just puts distance in between your tries. So it's like, I got hit by that attack fighting the last judge, and I think I can dodge it. I just need to try it a couple more times. Well, guess what? It's going to take you 5 minutes before you see that attack again. So it's kind of hard to get that short area repetition and practice. And it can be really annoying. I'm picking the last judge especially because that's got a really long and really difficult boss run to get back there.
And that's the big end of Act 1 boss, right? After that is when Act 2 begins. So everybody's familiar with this.
Climactic moment in the game for sure. So that boss run is really hard, and you want to get back in the fight as soon as possible. Other difficult game developers, most famously From Software, have stopped doing boss runs. Elden Ring doesn't have them the way that the old Dark Souls games did. And so people are like, well, what Team Cherry, what gives? I thought we were past this. The other school of thought, which was kind of brought up by Derek Yu, the developer of Spelunky and one of the main UFO 50 creators, was that having that boss run lets you process and decompress in between attempts. So it feels less like smashing your head up against the wall repeatedly. And you have time to think. And in the case of the Last Judge boss run, I really got better at platforming doing that run over and over and over and over and over again. I mean, legitimately 20 to 30 times doing that run. So there is something to be said for that. I wonder where you two fall on this, because this is if you took a community, every single Silksong player poll of what do you hope they fix or change? Boss runs would be way up at the top of that list, I think.
Well, the Last Judge one is a good example. And I did get better at platforming. And I even got, that boss run or the run down to less than a minute, just, skipping certain enemies and whatnot. However, what it prevented me from doing was equipping the crest that I wanted to use against it, because the Beast crest, which is the only other one I found, that changes your pogo. And that pogo is like crazy hard to use because you're like doing a front flip and it's at an arc. And
That's
so
exactly why I stuck with the hunter crest the entire time.
And so that's why the boss fight was way harder for me than other boss fights. Cause I was just like, well, I don't have vampirism, but it's the only way I can get to this boss.
You're trading something. It's just, are you trading something on the front end or the back end in your case?
But the other boss run that puts me more in the camp of like, this is just wasting my time at the end of it, is the boss run to the cogwork dancers. Because between the bench and the cogwork dancers are like 3 of those really giant guards with the violin bow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're just a waste of my time. They're just standing in my way. They often are more difficult for me to dispatch than the cogwork dancers themselves because they hit for 2 on everything. And so this is where like boss runs can be just like a waste of time for me.
My take on this is going to be more nuanced because ultimately I think the run backs in Silksong are fine. I'm going to have probably a controversial take on this, but I really don't think on average they're that bad. But I point out 2 that stick in my memory. The Last Judge run back, for sure. I got better at that. I whittled that down to like under a minute to get back. I'm finding alternate paths to get up there. I'm getting better at the pogoing. That's awesome. But it is quite a bit of time. I think it's a little bit too much time. The other one I think back to is in Bilewater, the run back to Grohl the Great, who I think is one of the hardest bosses, honestly, in like Act 2. So you've got one of the hardest bosses with a place with poison where I am constantly worried about falling into the water or hitting a wrong pogo. There's lots of pogoing you have to do and enemies that get in your way. It takes a long time. Guys are jumping out of the water, but you don't know when they're going to jump out of the water, so you can't go on autopilot. You always have to, like in like 2 or 3 spots, you have to be alert for someone possibly jumping out of the water to throw spikes at you, but it doesn't always happen. So that just takes a long time. And then I just get smashed by Grohl. He also has a gauntlet that starts his fight. So you don't start fighting Grohl the Great until you get rid of like 5 waves of smaller enemies that are annoying on their own.
Oh, gross.
And you're fighting over the poison still. So those 2 instances I point out as this is excessive. This is obscenely annoying, right? But on average, I kind of subscribe to the camp of the runbacks are great to refresh yourself, to sort of clear the slate temporarily while you're thinking about it. Sometimes for me, jumping right back into a boss fight, it's like I don't even have enough time to really get better. There are diminishing returns for my ability to do better on a boss if I'm just jumping right back in there. So I'm kind of in both camps. It's a nuanced take. It just kind of depends on which one.
I don't decompress on the boss rush back because I find them annoying. Yeah. I decompress by walking away. So I would rather just jump back in. And I do have an anecdote about a boss run that I thought was insanely unfair. But what I really was just I went the wrong direction and didn't find a bench until after I lost 1,000 rosaries or whatever. It was, I found Trobio.
Yes,
and he is right above a bench. But what happened was I fell into Trobio's room before I found the bench that's right below him and tried to fight him a couple times with this really long boss run. And then I lost, 1,000 rosaries. And I'm like, okay, forget this. I'm going to go explore. And there was a bench right below him.
Yeah.
Sick burn.
Oh, that sucks.
So that's actually a short boss run that I wish I would have found sooner.
Yeah, even Grohl the Great has a bench that's closer. You find a bench that's closer. And there's a bench after Grohl the Great. But even that bench that's closer, you still have to do so much crap to get to him. It's just, yeah. So I don't know. Does that answer your question?
What was it? It just wanted the take because I do think there are things about the boss runs that are good and helpful, but while I'm doing them, I'm not always appreciating that. So especially with the one in Biowater, that one was real rough just for all the reasons that you mentioned earlier. And it was interesting. I was playing Silksong and Dark Souls 2 at the same time, and Dark Souls 2 has worse boss runs than Silksong. They're like legitimately painful in Dark Souls 2. And so it really got me thinking about like, why do they do this? Like, what's the purpose of this? And some are better than others. I guess I'll just leave it at that. But I'm not in the camp that like Elden Ring stopped doing it, therefore like they're saying to the rest of the industry, hey, we think this sucks. We're not doing this anymore. And I do think there is a benefit to it, but you got to be better than Dark Souls 2 about it.
If I may, I kind of want to take this and just step back just a few steps to when we were talking about the crests and the charms. It's like, why did they keep this possibly objectively bad decision from one game to the next? And I guess another thing that you both have unlocked in my mind, if I'm thinking about it from Team Cherry's perspective, if they decide having to equip the compass charm in Hollow Knight was bad and they want to get rid of that, or if they thought runbacks to the bosses were excessive and we're going to scale those back or maybe eliminate them entirely, doesn't that kind of retroactively look back at Hollow Knight and say that was bad? It's kind of them saying, yes, this is now objectively better in the sequel, but I would be afraid of like people going back to Hollow Knight and kind of being like, oh, I can't play this. I have all these luxuries in the sequel, right? So I think there's something there too, where they're doubling down on things. Maybe it's because they're prideful, but maybe it's actually to preserve the quality of Hollow Knight. And they think of these two games as a series. They talk to each other. They're in conversation with each other. And so I think it's justified, when you think about it from moving from one game to the next. It's not just we're going to make a game that's better, but we need to make games that make sense together too.
Yeah. Silksong just brought up a bunch of conversations about like authorial intent. And obviously everything that goes into a game is intentional, but it seems even more intentional in these cases where like these were things that your last game was criticized for and you're not fixing them to the degree that people want you to. So what does that say about your process and what you want from these games? And I think that dovetails nicely into like the difficulty of Silksong. And Hollow Knight was hard, especially if you were going for the true ending, the Radiance ending and stuff. Hollow Knight could get very, very difficult. And it was funny, one of you mentioned like the way that the video games used to kind of be like this, where it's like the sequel's got to be harder. Like I think of some early Mario games that are like, well, we're making the second game for people who beat the first game. So they're not going to be satisfied with the first game again. They need another challenge. And whether it was because Silksong was born of DLC or because they believe in that philosophy, I do agree that Silksong is on average harder than Hollow Knight, especially the platforming is on average more difficult than in Hollow Knight. And I think a lot of the bosses are harder to compensate for how much more mobile Hornet is.
Mm-hmm.
And you do have new stuff that's like those arenas, the wave encounters. Those are brand new. You have a bunch of like mini boss enemies that are not so special on their own, but they bring in ads all the time to like mess up your safe spaces in the room. Like the Savage Beast Fly is the one that everyone runs into, the wall that everyone runs into.
Yeah.
So it's a harder game, just like from a pure difficulty standpoint, it's harder. I think they did a lot of cool difficulty things that reinforce the story themes in a really cool way, but it is a harder game, and it was a deliberate choice to make it a harder game. With the number of years this game was in development, if they were like, oh, this is not endgame DLC anymore, this is a different game, we could tone the difficulty down and have it be an equal challenge to Hollow Knight. They would have done that. but they didn't want to do that. They obviously didn't want to do that. So now we're back talking about, did they make the right choice? And to me, I love the difficulty. I love overcoming the challenge in this game, not every game. But I think they should have included some options to make the game more accessible to more people. I don't think that would have harmed my experience playing on the default difficulty. And I think that it would have allowed more people to finish the game, would have allowed more people to play the game in the first place. Like, there's a lot of people that just like, for whatever reason, they can't, like physically or whatever, cannot play games like this. And it kind of sucks when developers are just like, game's not for you. And I mean, I don't think Team Cherry's being flippant like that, but the lack of, again, the game's in development for 8 years. They could have put accessibility options in there if they wanted to.
They're smart. It's not like the thought didn't cross their minds.
Yeah.
It had to have. I agree with you. What do you think that looks like as far as approachability settings, as far as difficulty levels? Is it something else? Is it something kind of unseen before in games? What do you think?
I think that damage sliders would have been a good start. There's a popular mod for PC players to just like make you take 1 mask of damage instead of 2, and then you do double damage. And that has allowed some friends of mine to play the game when they couldn't have done it or didn't feel like they could have done it on the standard difficulty. Like, just having modes like that, you're not changing anything about the game. You're just kind of adjusting some values to let people, you start the game with 5 masks, and if a hit takes 2 masks, you get hit twice, and that's it. No more hits for you. So kind of putting the math a little bit more in your favor. That's a start, I think.
Yeah, taking those steps where you're not dramatically changing the formula, because you're still asking the player to go in there and fight the bosses. You still have to avoid attacks. If you have 5 masks and you could get hit 5 times and die, you still have to avoid a lot of attacks, right?
Right.
But yeah, I also had that feeling of, I have 5 masks and I'm getting hit for 2. That feels really scary in a lot of these fights.
Harsh.
It's harsh.
Yeah.
Yes, it's tough.
I think you could even take it a step further where like just speed of enemies is slowed down. So like every boss, every enemy even has like these number of attacks. This boss will do this attack, and then there's a brief pause before it does the next attack. So what you could do is not necessarily slow down their movement speed or anything, but like build in a delay between when they change from one attack to the other, just to give you a window to get off 2 or 3 more slashes in. I think that would make a big difference. And you can even implement this with like small enemies around the world. I'm going to use like Hunter's March for an example.
Oh, yeah.
Like you've got the flying ants, maybe they hover for half a second more before they do their little stinger dive, or just the crawling ants that are easy to dispatch. Maybe they don't speed up when you're in their line of sight. Maybe they just maintain that constant speed instead in like an easy mode. Because I found like reaction time to be my biggest challenge.
Well, and reaction time can play a part in platforming too. And I think the overall difficulty you feel in this game can be the result of straws building until you break the camel's back. And it's not just I'm dying a lot to tough bosses and annoying enemies that attack quickly. It's that to get to some of these places and these enemies, I have to do the pogo bouncing on a series of platforms above spikes. And so, this might be a little strange to implement, but like, what if it's this slider allows you to increase the hitbox, like you said, of the
pogo elements.
Of the pogo elements, something like that.
Or
how do we make the platforming a little bit, tighter for the average person?
Or just like no longer take damage from spikes. You have to restart at the landing point, but
plenty of games have that.
Yeah.
Plenty of games have like no spike damage. You're specifying what dangers don't give you damage. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. I think that there's room for granular difficulty stuff like that. Like you said, whatever it is that's giving you trouble, there could be an option to help out.
Definitely. Now, Dave, you were kind of hinting at the difficulty of Silksong and how it reinforces the world and the story. Is that something you want to get into a little bit more?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
This is one of my favorite parts about the game is having acknowledged that, like, I wish that there were ways for more people to play this because the game is hard. And that I think it kind of sucks that they close the door on a lot of people. The fact that the game is difficult reinforces the story of the pilgrimage, which is a difficult journey for everyone involved, even Hornet, who's basically a god. Like, you know, she's a demigod at worst, right? It's a difficult journey even for Hornet. And having the game be challenging reinforces that. But along the way, so like when you reach the Citadel, it feels like an accomplishment that you've gotten there, because it was like there was hard stuff along the way. Like Morwing was really hard when I fought Morwing, and the last judge, like we already talked about that stuff. There's a lot. Maybe you went the other way and you went through Bilewater first, like to get to the Citadel. Like however you get there, it feels good to get there. And it's because it was a challenge that it feels good. You feel accomplishment. Along the way, there's a lot of little touches that like really reinforce the story of the pilgrims and everyone who's like basically made a living taking advantage of the pilgrims along the way. And you mentioned the fact that you have to pay for benches, some like in a lot of cases. Like it's really effective to me when you reach a shop and you have to pay to enter the shop.
Ooh.
Not like, let alone to buy something. You have to pay to walk in the door, and there's a bench in there. And like, look at that from a storytelling perspective. This person has found a way to squeeze the pilgrims of everything they have and eke out a living by doing that. It sucks, but it's great storytelling. Same with the benches that you have to pay for. Same with the fact that if you want to string up your rosaries so you don't lose them when you die, you got to pay a tax to do that. It's awesome. The confessional that you mentioned, there's another one. And there's a great NPC in the Citadel that's related to that confessional thing. Like the stories are related. I'm not going to, it's a spoiler. I won't say it, but like if you got there, you know how I mean. And like, I remember this one time when I was doing the Mount Fay platforming, which is really hard. Probably one of the top 5 hardest platforming sections. And there's a bench in the middle of it. And I couldn't afford the bench.
Oh no.
Like, yeah, because I just died too many times. And I got there and I was like, this sucks. But like in that cool, I was like fully in on it. It was like that sicko way of like, this sucks. Yes. And then I did the second half of Mount Fay without dying afterwards.
Oh, amazing. Wow.
But I had that tension that whole time of like, there was a bench and you couldn't afford it. Like, if you die here, are we going to go back and grind rosaries and try and get back and unlock that bench? And it turned out that I didn't need it. And maybe I got lucky or whatever, but like,
well, that added to the thrill. That added to the excitement a bit.
The thrill, and it's a lasting memory of this game. And imagine all the pilgrims who are like, from their perspective, they're like, I've been walking through these places. It's really difficult. I'm being chased by monsters all the time. I need to sit down. And they're like, that'll be 30 rosaries. And they're like, I don't have 30 rosaries. And they're like, well, I guess you're not sitting down. Keep walking. And it's just like, I think this is really good. A lot of great games will intertwine gameplay systems with stories in ways that reinforce each other. And I think Silksong is like excellent at this.
Yeah. Wow. Those are all such good call out examples, and just in general, such a cool thing this game does. It makes me want to, like, I know I'm going to replay this game someday.
Yeah, for sure.
It makes me want to kind of have those glasses on to look for those things, because I'm sure there are even more examples. Yeah.
One more example is the traps.
Oh,
like the bench traps.
Yes. You think you're safe, right? This is where I'll respawn from if I die.
Yeah. Or like from the pilgrim's perspective, like, oh, thank God I'm in the middle of Bilewater. There's a bench. I can like sit down and take a rest. Nope. You are flung down into the poison water where, you know, something's going to eat you or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something bad's going to happen. I think this is excellent storytelling. And also I think it's kind of funny when it happens. Like I laughed when I got bench trapped in this game because it's just like you need that bench so bad. And they don't pull this trick out very often. They really pick their spots.
They do.
And I'm just like, Team Cherry, you got me.
It'd be one thing if every bench had a quirk. And so it's like,
right.
This whole place is home alone. There are traps everywhere. It's like this bench has little toy cars in front of it. Don't slip on them. This one has paint cans that'll come and hit you in the head. Yeah. It is only a couple times, but it adds also an element of like, it makes me excited to watch other people play and see them react. Watching people stream this game is fun when they get to those moments because they're like, oh, finally. They sit down and then the big spike thing comes down and swings at them. Yeah. Fascinating.
Interesting. I haven't been through bile water for more than like a couple seconds yet, so I am totally unaware of what this is.
Well, that's another thing you pointed out, Dave, is that someone could go through bile water in its entirety before finishing Act 2 or, whatever. Mm-hmm. I didn't have bile water unlocked when I got credits.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't have putrefied ducts.
Yeah, I still haven't been there.
And I think I still have an area or two that I haven't seen, right? So
this, real quick, this just goes to show, like, if you don't play this on a deadline if you don't have to, like, you're going to miss a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So
it also goes to show Team Cherry are like masters at designing Metroidvanias with like different approaches to different places. And it like really seems that the only way to get to the Citadel is this one way. And it's not the only way. Mm-hmm. If you bounce so hard off of the front door, there is a back way if you explore. And it was really cool to learn that because I was positive there was only one way to get in. And Team Cherry are just they're just good at this.
They are, yeah. And it shows too that like everybody's path is unique. Like I could have one of those trap benches that, it's one of my most memorable moments because of how devastating it was or how funny it was in a dark way. Someone else might not find that, so they might find it many hours after getting credits as they're doing cleanup or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned earlier that this game has probably one of my favorite bosses in all of games. I want to know what some of your favorite bosses are and like the feelings of achievement or overcoming certain challenges.
Feelings of achievement were basically constant because everything is an ordeal to get through. I mean, like
everything is Silksong. Everything is an ordeal.
Yeah, that's the tagline. Put that on the back of the box. But the bosses for me are really interesting because like I think it's really hard to make bosses that straddle that line between being a legitimate difficult challenge while also I always feel like I know how to do it. I just have to, I've said it many times. I love From Software's games. There's a lot of bosses where I go in the room, they crush me in a 7-hit combo, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. I never felt that way from Silksong bosses, no matter how hard they were. So some of my favorites were the Clockwork Dancers. Those are like S+ tier boss fights across all of gaming. That's incredible storytelling, a fun boss fight, incredible music, like all that stuff all together. The final boss in Act 3, because I did finish Act 3, the final boss is incredibly hard, but it's really fun. It's like their masterwork of a challenge boss fight. I always felt like I knew how to do it. I just had to follow all those lessons that I'd learned. So I love that. I thought the fourth chorus was a fun early game boss fight. Pretty early game. I liked the lace fight, same thing, pretty early game, but like you're fighting someone that's kind of like yourself. And there's honestly very few in this game that very few of like the big boss fights, not the ones that like spawn ads in or something. Those are pretty forgettable, but like the big moment boss fights, they're very few that I didn't like. Yeah. I liked all of them.
Nice.
We'll say.
Yeah. You mentioned Lace, and I was thinking about this earlier, how Lace sort of feels like the moments where you would fight Hornet in Hollow Knight 1 a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's supposed to be
sort
the
of like
callback,
the parallel there.
Mm-hmm.
I also call out a lot of the same ones. Fourth Chorus is a great, I think may have been the only boss where I beat it on the first try, because I think it just instantly communicated what it was so well.
I agree.
Yeah.
And it's relatively easy. So I think it's like, just a very approachable boss. And the way you end that fight with involving the ceiling, I'll just say, very cool. Like not a lot of bosses do that in these games. Trobio. Freaking Trobio.
How could I forget Trobio?
Trobio, I feel like is not talked about enough. Like, so cool. Trobio is so cool that like our friend Kestrel cosplayed as Trobio for Halloween.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
she wore like the Trobio outfit on stream as she played games around Halloween. I think Trobio really appeals to the theater kids, Disco and I are former theater kids, so I saw something in ourselves in there.
Me too.
I preferred the backstage stuff, so it's not quite the same for me, but
well, there are lots of fun nods to like the performance
Yes.
art world,
Disco's under the stage in the Trobio boss fight, shooting the fog
I'm the
up
one
and stuff.
handing him the bombs. Yeah.
Yeah.
the pyrotechnics. I also call out the Cogwork dancers. One of the few bosses that has ever like made me feel bad as I'm killing the boss. Like it's a tragic boss fight, not for me necessarily, but for who I'm fighting. And it's emotional. There is a very strong story there. And also the first Sinner is one of those ones where, first of all, I have to compliment this one for having the shortest run back in the game, in that you just spawn right outside the door and you don't even lose rosaries. There might be other bosses like this in Act 3 that I haven't found.
Final
yet,
Act 3 boss, to their credit, has no boss run. They're like, we know this is a big challenge.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So I think the first Sinner is sort of your first dip into that idea. And that's one where you like see it, you just need to do it enough. It's like, I know what I need to do. I'm just like, and then you lock in and it feels so good when you finally hit the rhythm of that one. Similarly, I point out Chakra, who you can fight as like a practice sort of fight. It's not, she doesn't like turn evil in the part I'm talking about, but you have an option to spar against her and it's pretty tough. But similarly, you find the rhythm. And then she gets faster, and it's really satisfying to get that one done.
For me, first of all, I want to say that Trobio, I think he does too much stuff. I think he does too many things.
Isn't that kind of the point?
Apparently.
He's flamboyant. He's over the top. He's Trobio.
Yeah. When I first found him, I didn't have the double jump yet, so I tried it a lot of times and I quit. Because he does too many things.
Yeah.
Once I did have the double jump though, and my trial by fire, I was able to dispatch him pretty quickly. As far as favorites go, I've missed a lot. Again, I was playing on a deadline. There are tons of bosses I'm looking at here that I've never seen before. First Sinner among them, looking basically the coolest. What a cool design, but I know nothing about it. I hate Savage Beast Flies. First of all, those guys suck.
Plural.
Yeah.
Plural.
Yes.
They had the audacity.
I really like the design for Sister Splinter. Fourth Chorus is also, I agree, really cool. And I loved the ending of that boss fight, something I don't think you really do in basically any other boss fight in the Hollow Knight pantheon to that degree. I really loved the first Lace fight, which was... I did that on the first try and I felt really proud. I was like, oh, awesome. And Lace looks so cool. But I really have to throw it to Cogwork Dancers. It's my favorite boss fight in all of video games and favorite boss design.
Wow.
And
high praise.
I've played like 40 Mega Man games and those are all about the bosses, and Cogwork Dancers just take it.
That's very high praise.
It's robots, it's bugs, and the fight is cool. You know what to do right away. And even though it's still challenging, even though you know exactly what you're supposed to do and how to dodge everything, it's still rough, and it's just so attractive and everything about it's so cool. And it really unlocked like a much more pivotal moment than I was expecting when I first got to that room. So it's just so goddamn cool. I love the cogwork dancers.
Can I also say, for both of you continuing to play into Act 3, there's something related to them that's extremely cool.
I see the boss you're probably talking about. But I don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, extremely cool when you get there. Also, I forgot Widow. Love Widow.
Oh yeah,
as a boss fight.
Widow looks cool, but that's one where I like put on the beast crest and was just like, I'm gonna go ham vampirism on this because I'm struggling, and that actually worked out really well against that fight.
Can I just say this? I don't say this as like a brag, but a testament to like how well designed the bosses are. I feel like in Silksong is I started a new file on the permadeath mode after I beat Act 3, and I made it to Belheart on the permadeath.
Wow.
I'm still there. I got to Belheart and put it down and haven't picked it back up. But I beat Lace, I beat Fourth Chorus, I beat whatever the first boss is in the Moss Grotto. I think there's another boss that I fought along the way. Morwing. I beat Morwing.
Oh yeah.
Without dying. And I don't consider myself to be like a pro Silksong player. I think that Silksong is an excellent teacher, that by the time you get to the end of the game, you have learned so much about how to play. The enemy attacks are so clearly signaled. There's such a clear time to punish or heal during their breaks. And there's no random stuff to like catch you out of nowhere. Like this thing that you couldn't predict happened. There's none of that, because I got close to dying once in the Fourth Chorus because I fell in the lava. But like, other than that, I didn't really come close to dying in those fights. And I don't attribute it to like I'm going to say like, yeah, I think I'm pretty good at the game, but I'm not like a challenge runner for any type of game. I really think that this game is so well designed that when you beat it, you know how to play, and you just like start over and you just prosper. Like,
yeah,
I don't know if it's a universal experience, but I really don't think that I'm like that good at video games. I want to give them credit for like designing these things in such a really clear and predictable way that will allow me to play 5 hours on permadeath and not die.
Yeah. My 3-year-old asked me to play Silksong today, and I was like, instead of going to my new profile that I used for this podcast, I went back to my very first profile that I started back in September, played 2 hours of, and like I was going through Hunter's March like it was nothing, because I had been taught so much. I've been hardened by the fight in Cradle. It's it does go a long way.
Yeah, and there's
I will say that in the permadeath mode, I didn't go into Hunter's March. I was like, that's optional.
Yeah.
That's none of my business anymore.
You went to that
I'm
same series of platforms and you just like turned around again.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, now I'm curious about our progression and what that looked like throughout our playtime. So this can look like, what were your play styles regarding crests and tools? Or how did exploring and uncovering the map change? What kinds of things did you prioritize? Just kind of open it up generally to this category of progressing through the game. What were our stories here?
So I already said I kept with the Reaper crest the whole game, so I didn't change that. Even when I was in exploration mode, I didn't change it because, again, it fundamentally changes the way you move, and I just didn't want to learn a new character, basically. So I didn't really mess with that. For tools, on the Reaper crest, eventually you can have 2 attack tools, and I always used the little floating spike ball and the tax. For any type of situation, I have something spiky to throw out there. And the tax, honestly, like they just rip through a lot of mini bosses, especially. So helpful. So that's kind of what I used with that. And then the way I play these games is whenever I get a new ability, you get like the wall cling or the fey cloak or whatever, I've usually either marked the map or I just like straight up remember places where I think I can use this to access a new area. And so this game took me with doing Act 3. All of it together took me about 70 hours. So I played this pretty slow and pretty methodically, looping through all these areas over and over again, trying to find new stuff, really trying to find mask shards. That was my priority for that's the upgrade I want the most is I need to be able to take 3 hits instead of 2,
Exactly.
So
yeah, it makes a difference.
Huge difference. So those are my priorities. And I always play these games in the way that when I get a new ability, I really backtrack a lot to try to find those places that I can now access. And so that meant that I usually visited these areas like 2, 3, 4, 5 times each, especially with the big ones, because they have multiple levels of upgrades needed to see everything. So yeah, that's my strategy with Metroidvanias. My favorite thing in these games is exploring. So I'm driven by exploring before anything else. And so one of my favorite feelings in gaming is getting the claw line and remembering this place where I think I can use this thing, and we're off and I'm exploring and the world is my oyster for the next hour or so. I love it. And I constantly sought that out.
Yeah, totally.
For me, that is my base instinct, is to go back to those places. I'm not good at marking maps ever in any situation, but sometimes I'll remember it's oh, this was in the place with all the lava, so I can go back there now that I have the claw line. That's my instinct, and that's how I would have played it before doing Underplayed. However, after doing Underplayed, I'm trying to be more efficient with my time. So I'm progressing, and not always necessarily just to get to the end of the game, but I'm progressing to get the claw line, and maybe it would have been easier if I had gone back and explored some other stuff and got some upgrades, but I'm exploring to get the claw line, maybe in hard mode, and exploring to get the Fey Cloak right after that, maybe in hard mode because I haven't gone back and explored with the claw line. And just trying to get both of them at once so that I only go back to each area with all my mobility upgrades.
Maximizing your visit, minimizing your visits.
Yeah, so I'm only exploring at one time. And ideally having as many wishes active as possible while I'm doing that as well. But I also don't know the trigger for wishes. That's sort of mysterious to me. But yeah, unfortunately, deadlines play a big role in how I play these games right now. And I want to go back and do a casual playthrough of this, but this also came out the same year as Digimon Story Time Stranger, and I've been waiting for that game for just as long, essentially. So I don't know what I'll prioritize and when I'll play what, but Digimon came out, so I have to play that eventually.
It's going to be taken off the backlog.
Ayo.
Yeah, I kind of with the mask shards, I'm looking to cross off any little thing that makes me more capable or more durable or just better. So I love finding pale oil. Pale oil is hard to come by, but that's how you're upgrading your needle, right? So I don't always know how to find it though, but I also realize I will get rewards if I find the fleas. And so I love finding the fleas, and I like moving that caravan. Where's that caravan going? We move it a couple times. I'm using the Hunter Crest the entire time, like I said. The compass, of course. I found the polyp pouch, which makes all of your tools inflict venom. So
what?
Yes.
I want that.
Venom tax, dude.
Venom tax, venom cog flies.
I didn't mention my red tools. I use the tax, but the boomerang,
the curve claw.
Yeah,
that's
use
one
the
of mine.
Heck out of that.
Yeah, I use the straight pin, which is the one that just throws a pin really fast horizontally, and then I kind of switch to the curve claw because of how many times it can potentially hit the enemy. And I'm combining that and the cogfly with the polyp pouch, doing poison damage. And then I'm also using the warding bell to protect myself while I'm healing, and the injector band to make healing faster. I like stuff like that because I find that in boss fights, I'm dying because I don't get to get that heal in. And so if I can minimize the amount of time I'm taking, that's going to really increase my chances of success. This seemed to happen accidentally, coincidentally. I was never looking out for it, but I feel like the game was constantly giving me the tool pouch damage and capacity upgrades for different reasons, rewards for quests, sometimes finding it like in a merchant or maybe while exploring, but I wasn't even trying to upgrade that stuff and I got them upgraded. And that felt really nice to just do naturally. I feel like the game just knows how to spit upgrades out at you, sometimes without you expecting it. And it's augmenting things in a really good way.
Next, I want to talk about art, world building, and indelible scenes or areas. I've got a couple of examples myself. Dave, we want to throw it to you first, though.
Well, we've mentioned BioWater many times. I just want to throw this out that BioWater, while it is hellish to get through gameplay-wise, it's pretty cool looking, and the music is absolutely gorgeous in BioWater. It's a real did they tell Christopher Larkin that the area was really nice when he composed the song, or did they tell him like people are going to hate their lives when they're in here?
So make this one really good. Yeah,
make this one just absolutely beautiful. And he understood the assignment. Yeah, so BioWater, the Citadel, Disco, you mentioned, like the Citadel is just there's so much going on visually. The music is fantastic there. Storytelling wise, there's a lot of world building stuff in there too. But it's really cool when you get there. I won't say why, but it's really cool in the Citadel. And generally, I think this game looks incredible everywhere that you go. There's some specific scenes I remember, like in the screen to the left of Bone Bottom, when you walk across and those green bugs all flutter up. It's really, really pretty at the beginning, and feels like they would put a title card drop in there or something like that. Maybe they did. That was so long ago, I don't even remember. But it's really pretty there. There's like some places where you're like on a bridge outside of the Citadel and you can see like the lights going off into the distance and stuff like that. It's just super pretty. Like Hollow Knight was a super pretty game, and this game just like upped it a little bit, like more lighting, more stuff like that to kind of just make some of these things pop. I have 100 screenshots of this game. Basically everywhere I went, I was like, this looks so cool. So
there are lots of soft edges to lights. There are lots of particles going on. I feel like it's really adding more layers. Like it's compositing a lot more into the image on average. I think there's just a lot more going on to give layers, to give depth.
I remember I was talking with Jenny, the guest on my episode on Tales from the Backloggd, and she got to go to that museum exhibit in Australia, it was like famously like, oh, Silksong is actually real because they're going to have a museum exhibit where people can play it. And part of that exhibit was they had these interactive maps where you could like slide in and out all the different layers of these scenes going into the background. And it was like tons and tons of layers building up this detail going off as far as you can see, basically. I wonder if you can find that online now, but she brought that up too, as like, there's so much detail in every screen. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And I've looked back at screenshots from Hollow Knight 1, and it's like, it looked great. It was beautiful, but I'm so used to the amount of layers in Silksong. It's really incredible. There is a moment in Act 3 where you're climbing, have to climb really fast. You're escaping something.
Oh, yeah.
I love that scene, and there's nothing else like it, and it's super exciting. Incredible. I hope there's more of that yet to be seen. I think the run back to the Last Judge is forever seared into my brain too.
Yep.
God, I hate conch flies, dude. I still don't like those guys.
I also, I'll call out Sinner's Road. I'll be that guy.
I haven't. I yeeted twice so far.
The muck roaches and the cages and stuff. It just has. I guess you could kind of compare it to BioWater, but it's its own sort of daunting place, just for being.
It felt like, what's the area in the first Hollow Knight? that you can accidentally fall into, and it's like, oh God, I'm here now.
Yeah, Deep Nest.
Like Deep Nest. That felt like this game's Deep Nest.
It did, yes. So I love that you can kind of feel trapped there. You're not like as screwed, I feel, as if you fall into Deep Nest way too early, which is good. Oh gosh.
Speaking of being trapped, there's the slab. I don't know if you guys found it the alternate way. There's a way to get there that doesn't involve you walking in the front door.
I did not willfully go to the slab.
Okay, yeah.
So I went to the slab a few times and couldn't find the map. And I feel like I
still don't have the map.
I must have gone there the normal way because I didn't get stuck there or anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does that mean...
So you got stuck there?
So I did not, but I heard about it and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool that, there's this other way to take you there.
I'll just say that if you enter the slab the way I entered the slab, there's an entire gameplay section that's totally different from everything else that you experience in the game.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that was optional personally, but
yeah.
Wow. There's like a side quest that inflicts a curse on you and you have to get it off. And I had to look this up. I had to look up where to go, who to talk to. It's not very straightforward. So it's kind of reminding me of that, is like this temporary moment where the essence of the game is completely flipped on its head. And it's like, you're now sort of a slave to this kind of mechanic that's going on. And you have to deal with it. You have to prioritize fixing this. Unless you want to add an extra challenge for yourself. Just live your life. Yeah.
So for areas that I liked, I really want to point out Cogwork Core. Not only was this my favorite song that I encountered, but everything else about Silksong and Hollow Knight is at least moderately organic, and that's not the case here. And that's just like such a cool departure. And when you pair that with one of my other favorite environmental moments of the game, when you first enter like the choral chambers, it's like, there's no one here. I'm just walking around. I'm having a good time. There's no one after me. But then that changes and enemies show up, and the way that the enemies show up is another storytelling moment and like points to something potentially inorganic. And just when you pair that with like the Cogwork Core right next door, it's just like a really cool section of the game. And I'm just like, I'm really into that.
I'm going to queue up that theme on my drive home, I think.
Nice.
There's also a cutscene in Bellheart that I think is like a big story moment that is very memorable. That image is seared in my mind too.
Yeah.
Very cool stuff.
Also, I obviously I won't say what happens, but all the endings of this game are really cool. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. All the endings are really cool, and the Act 3 special ending is worth it. It's very cool.
I'm working my way. You said it took you like 70 hours. I'm at that 61 hour mark right now. So
I'm probably a year and a half away. I think both my kids have to be in school full time before I can even think about it.
You'll sip on the game.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, do any of us have anything more to say about Silksong? We've kind of covered lots of different areas, from story to gameplay to exploration and combat and platforming, all kinds of stuff. Anything else? Any final words?
It's an incredibly rich game, and there's so much that we haven't talked about, even in, almost 2 hours of just talking about Silksong. Like, this is, like I said, 70-hour game for me, but it's not empty calories. There's a lot to this. It demands a lot of you, but it's really, really rich, and there's a lot that you can get out of it, provided that you're able and willing to meet the challenge of the game. And like, for a lot of people, if you can't, it's Team Cherry's fault that you can't, in my opinion. But for those who can, I think that this game has it's extremely rewarding, we'll say. And it's not a surprise to me that we've talked about it for as long as we have.
Yeah, this will be our longest episode, I think, and I think it's well deserved. It's justified.
Leave it to me to be on brand with that.
It's Silksong's fault too.
Yeah.
So.
I think the wait was worth it. I was never worried, and I really wanted to tell everybody that Cogwork Dancers are my favorite boss.
Yeah, I think there's
So
special moments in this game, even for people who don't want to put up with such a difficult game. I think there are moments that will resonate for basically anybody who likes special storytelling, cool environments and characters, awesome music and sound effects. There's something in here for everybody, and I think it's just a masterpiece. It's in my top 5 indie games now.
Yeah.
It's surpassed Hollow Knight.
Yep.
What number is it, Disco, on my list? You looked.
I don't have it open now.
It's maybe 2 or 3 now.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Topped only by a few games.
You already said this phrase in this episode, but I did want to make sure that it did get said in this episode. Like eating an elephant is kind of how I feel about it right now. But
that's fair.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do. It's almost never ending, it seems. But I think we did a good job talking about it. And Dave, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about not just Silksong, but also yourself and the content you create. Can you give people another quick pitch about where to find you and your stuff?
Sure. And again, thank you both for having me here. I've been looking forward to this for a while, ever since we picked the game and set the date. So thank you both. It's been a lot of fun talking with you. And if people want to find me on my show, again, it's called Tales from the Backloggd. It's on all the podcast apps. It's also on YouTube. And again, it is one game every episode for usually over 2 hours, me with a different guest, and the first hour or so of every episode is no spoiler. So you can listen to any episode. And I like to think that we hit both. For the people who've never played the game, get a nice in-depth conversation without spoiling. And then for people who have played it, a nice in-depth spoiler discussion after that spoiler break. So try to do a little bit of everything for those people. So that's Tales from the Backloggd. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dave. We really appreciate it. We'll see you down the road for sure. And good luck with everything that you have coming up.
Thanks.
Well, this has been our review of Hollow Knight Silksong. You can play it on PC, Mac, Linux, Switch, Switch 2, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series. Dave rated it a 10. DiscoCola rated it a 9.5. I rated it a 10. That's the end of this episode of Underplayed. You can find more of our episodes at kzum.org/underplayed and on common podcast platforms. Our music was composed by Jack Rodenberg. Our art comes from Onimochi. Check out our show notes, where you can find and follow us across social media. Underplayed is on Bluesky, Instagram, and Threads. You can also find my links down below, and I stream a variety of indie games on Twitch.
And I am at DiscoCola in most of those places you can access with a browser. And hey, I often forget to tell you this, but Underplayed is also on YouTube in a mostly audio-only format. But if you want to listen to us on YouTube, you can find us there.
Next time, we will have 2 more secret games to review, and our featured game will be Yooka-Laylee in the Impossible Lair, a platformer developed by Playtonic Games. Until then, everyone, keep on playing.